Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the fanfiction guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Had Powerful Regen Quirk. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Toshinori Yagi was walking along the sidewalk, carrying his groceries and smiling at the people passing by, enjoying a pleasant day after his usual 4 hours of hero work. As he crossed the street, he heard the screeching of tires. Turning his head, he saw a car speeding toward him. Just as he was about to transform into All Might to save himself, someone pushed him out of the way. He fell onto his back, and the next thing he heard was a loud crash followed by screams from the crowd. Getting to his feet, he saw the wrecked car embedded in a shop wall, the driver unconscious with the airbag deployed. Nearby, he noticed a young person on the ground, blood pooling around them. Rushing to the stranger, he checked for signs of life. The boy looked no older than 14 or 15, with messy green hair and freckles beneath his eyes. Although he had several cuts on his face, it was the significant injury to the back of his head that concerned Toshinori. He pleaded with the boy to hold on, placing his ear against the youth's chest and hearing a heartbeat. Relief washed over him. The boy was alive. A bystander shouted that an ambulance was on the way. Toshinori continued to speak to the boy who had sacrificed himself for him, noticing something remarkable. The cuts on the boy's face began to heal, and he opened his eyes. To Toshinori's astonishment, the boy expressed his relief at still being alive, albeit with a bored expression. As he attempted to rise, Toshinori placed a hand on his chest, urging him to stay down until help arrived. The boy insisted he didn't need assistance, claiming his quirk would heal him. He stood up, lifting his shirt to inspect his chest, dismayed to find it bloodied and torn. He glanced around and saw his guitar shattered on the ground, frustration evident in his voice as he lamented his ruined instrument. As he began to walk away, Toshinori placed a hand on his shoulder, insisting he couldn't leave. The boy, however, was adamant about not needing medical attention and expressed his disdain for the police, believing they would blame him for the accident. Toshinori tried to reason with him, emphasizing that he wanted to ensure the boy was okay. But just then, the sound of sirens approached, and when Toshinori turned back to speak with the boy, he had vanished. Minutes later, paramedics and police arrived at the scene. They checked on Toshinori, who learned that the driver had been intoxicated and had nearly harmed several people. Yet, his thoughts were consumed by the green-haired boy who had saved him. A few days later, All Might was patrolling the streets of Mustafu, smiling at passers-by, taking selfies with fans, and signing autographs when he heard screams in the distance. Without hesitation, he rushed toward the commotion, encountering a crowd fleeing in terror. Upon arriving at the scene, he saw a man holding a gun to a little girl's head. To his surprise, the same teenager from days before was confronting the gunman, hands raised in surrender. The boy pleaded with the gunman, offering himself as a substitute hostage, trying to reason with him. As he stepped forward, All Might prepared to intervene. Just then, the gunman, panicking upon seeing All Might, turned the weapon toward the hero and began firing. The teenager, unaware of All Might's presence, instinctively grabbed the gunman's arm to shield the innocent bystanders behind him. In a flash, All Might unleashed a powerful attack, incapacitating the criminal in one swift motion. He dashed forward, catching the little girl before she could fall. Reassuring her that everything would be all right, All Might turned to the green-haired teenager, only to find him gravely injured. The boy had taken a bullet to the forehead, and All Might shielded the girl's eyes from the horrific sight. The girl's parents rushed to thank All Might for saving their daughter, but he insisted that it was the young man who had risked everything for her. He hoped the boy's quirk would save him once more. All Might, unsure of the boy's name or status as a licensed hero, expressed concern for his injuries and rushed to ensure the teenager received medical attention. As the police arrived to apprehend the gunman, All Might scooped up the wounded boy and leaped into the sky, racing to UA and straight to Recovery Girl's office. He called for her assistance, urgency in his voice as she assessed the situation and the bloodied teenager in his arms. They placed him on the stretcher, and the urgency in the room was palpable. All Might, deflating from his imposing form, looked at the boy with a nervous expression. He explained that there had been a hostage situation where the criminal began shooting at the crowd. The boy had bravely stepped in front of the gun to protect everyone. All Might recalled that he had a healing quirk, having met him the previous week when he saved him from a reckless driver. He had been searching for the boy all week to express his gratitude, but he had vanished before he could. The other adult in the room questioned how the boy had been shot yet appeared uninjured, especially considering the blood on his head. As they spoke, the teenager regained consciousness and opened his eyes, greeted by a bright light. He heard voices nearby and realized he was in a hospital again. With a sarcastic tone, he thought to himself that he was in a hospital once more. He got up from the stretcher and looked around, spotting two people, a familiar skeletal man and an elderly lady who seemed to be a doctor. The elderly woman asked if he was okay, to which he replied that he was fine but had neither money nor insurance to cover the treatment he had received. He insisted that he didn't need their help and wanted to leave immediately, not wanting to cause any trouble. Recovery Girl approached him and lightly tapped his head with her cane, urging him to stop saying foolish things. She reminded him that he had just been shot in the head and needed to be checked properly, as his quirk seemed to have already healed him. The teenager protested, trying to escape, but Tashinori stepped in to block the exit, urging him to calm down and allow Recovery Girl to examine him. The boy reiterated his lack of funds for a doctor's visit. Recovery Girl assured him that it was free and insisted he sit down before she had to use her cane again. After a moment of consideration, he reluctantly sat down for her examination. She assessed him and noted that he looked fine, with no visible scars, and praised his impressive regeneration quirk. Introducing herself as Chio Shizenji, known as the youthful heroine Recovery Girl, she asked for his name. He replied that he didn't have one, leading her to wonder if the injury had caused amnesia. He clarified that he simply had no name and explained that he had been on his own for as long as he could remember, not knowing where his parents were. Recovery Girl pressed further, asking where he lived. He bluntly stated that he was homeless, inviting her to laugh at him as others had done. Instead, she expressed concern for his well-being and asked when he had last eaten, suggesting he needed a good meal. She instructed Yagi to fetch food and clean clothes for the boy, who was in rags. Recovery Girl reassured him that they were there to help and that he didn't owe them anything. She directed him to the bathroom for a warm bath while Yagi retrieved food and clothes. The boy hesitated, feeling like a prisoner, but Recovery Girl insisted they just wanted to help. Considering their offer, he realized he hadn't eaten anything decent in weeks and could use new clothes and a bath. Finally, he agreed to stay for the moment. After he took a warm bath, he emerged dressed in jeans and a t-shirt that had been left for him. He found Tashinori and Recovery Girl waiting for him, with a table full of food. Recovery Girl encouraged him to eat as much as he wanted, and he dove into the food with enthusiasm, surprising the adults with his speed. Recovery Girl thanked him for his bravery in helping a young girl earlier that day, acknowledging the danger he had faced. The boy, mouth full, managed to convey that it was nothing, stating that he knew he would survive. When asked how he could be so sure, he explained that he had endured worse injuries in the past and always managed to survive, though a hint of sadness crossed his face. Realization dawned on him as he recognized Tashinori's resemblance to All Might, recalling the costume he had seen earlier. He commented on the skeleton appearance, jokingly asking if it was a transformation related to Tashinori's quirk. Tashinori confirmed it was indeed him, and the boy, unfazed, introduced himself casually, showing a surprising level of insight and composure. Now that he had eaten and received some attention, he wondered if he could leave. He wanted to find shelter or a place to rest before it got too dark outside. The other person asked if he really wanted to return to the street. The boy replied that he didn't have a choice. He had nowhere else to sleep. He expressed his disdain for orphanages and jails, saying he would rather sleep in garbage than be confined there. The man, with a reassuring tone, insisted that he would like to offer the boy a place to stay for the night, believing he deserved a warm bed after everything. The boy hesitated, feeling like he would be more of a burden than anything else. While it would be nice to sleep in a real bed for once, he thought about returning to the street and sleeping under a bridge, something he was used to. However, deep down, he hoped for a second chance in life. After a moment of contemplation, he decided to accept the offer, hoping the man would take good care of him. The man smiled and handed him a pair of shoes, explaining that his old pair was mismatched and had holes in the soles. He had found the new shoes in the lost and found box at school. The boy looked at the shoes and expressed his approval, noting the bright red color. The taxi ride to the man's home was short and quiet, lasting only 15 minutes. The boy had expected the number one hero to live in a mansion, but they arrived at a modest house on a small street. Once inside, the man showed him around, explaining that he preferred a simple lifestyle and often donated to charity from his earnings. The boy, however, grew serious and asked how payment would work for staying the night. He expressed his skepticism, recalling past experiences where offers to stay the night came with ulterior motives. He wondered if the number one hero had similar intentions. The man was taken aback, insisting that he had no such intentions and was not interested in exploiting anyone. He assured the boy that he would never have to endure such things while staying with him. The boy revealed that his life had not been pleasant, and he felt he should leave, believing he could find a park to sleep in. The man placed a hand on his shoulder, reiterating that he had a place to stay and meant it. He led the boy to a room, explaining that it was uncommon for someone to sleep there, but the bed was cozy. The boy thanked him, and the man encouraged him to rest, stating that they had both had an exhausting day. The boy expressed his gratitude again, and the man insisted he should call him by his first name, Toshinori. The next day, Toshinori was preparing breakfast when the boy woke up to the delicious smell and made his way to the kitchen. Toshinori welcomed him and invited him to eat while the food was hot. The boy thanked him for the meal and the bed, stating he would leave afterward to avoid being a burden. Toshinori reassured him that he could stay as long as he wanted, emphasizing his desire to help the boy get off the streets and have a real life. The boy expressed his reluctance to live in an orphanage, and Toshinori clarified that he was offering him a place to live with him if he wanted. The boy was surprised by the offer, feeling he had nothing to give in return and would only be a burden. Toshinori, however, insisted that it would be his pleasure to have him stay, believing the boy was a good kid with a good heart. "Tell me, if you had the choice, what career would you choose if given the chance?" The young man hesitated, feeling uncertain about his future. He had always seen himself as a nobody, having never attended school. He learned to read and write through visits to libraries and self-study, but he didn't consider himself particularly smart. Then, the older man asked why he had saved a girl the previous day. The young man admitted he didn't know. He just felt his legs moving on their own when he saw the gunman. The older man explained that there are stories about heroes whose bodies act before they have a chance to think, almost instinctively. The young man wondered what the older man was trying to tell him. The older man, Yagi, assured him that he saw the potential for heroism in him. He believed that putting others before oneself was a sign of true heroism and expressed his desire to train the young man to become a great hero. The young man was taken aback, questioning how he could be a hero with his quirk. Yagi emphasized that it wasn't about the quirk but about the spirit within. Transforming into his more powerful form, he asked if the young man would accept his offer to train and become the next symbol of peace. Overwhelmed with emotion, the young man eagerly agreed, expressing his desire for a new life, to escape the streets, and to find purpose instead of merely surviving. Yagi, noticing the young man's struggles, comforted him. He promised that he would never go hungry or be homeless again. The young man felt grateful, realizing how much the older man's words meant to him. He committed to working hard and proving himself worthy of the chance he was being given. After a few hours, they arrived at UA to meet Yagi's friends. In a large gym-like space, the young man recognized Recovery Girl and noticed an elderly man as short as she was. There was also a man in his 30s with short dark hair wearing a tan coat, and a large white mouse with a scar over one eye dressed in a suit. The mouse approached Yagi, greeting him warmly and inquiring about the young man he had spoken highly of. Startled by the talking mouse, the young man was introduced to Nizu. The principal of UA. Nizu explained that his quirk, high spec, granted him exceptional intelligence and perception. The young man, still in disbelief, apologized for his surprise and expressed his pleasure in meeting Nizu. The elderly man, Gran Torino, approached the young man, poking him gently with his cane. He questioned Yagi about the young man's readiness to become a hero. Yagi affirmed that the young man had the spirit of a true hero and expressed his desire for him to become his successor. Gran Torino, curious about what being a successor meant, pressed for an explanation. Yagi, with the support of the others present, revealed the truth about his quirk. He explained that it was called One for All, a power that could be passed from one person to another, growing stronger with each transfer. He had been searching for a successor for a long time and believed the young man was worthy of inheriting his strength. With determination, Yagi asked if the young man would accept this incredible responsibility. The young man, filled with hope and excitement, affirmed his decision to accept the challenge. Izuku made a firm decision to become Yagi's successor and protect the world just as Yagi had done for decades. Yagi looked at the young man before him with approval, expressing that this was exactly what he wanted to hear. Izuku inquired about the process, and Yagi explained that they would train his body over the next few weeks to prepare it for the power transfer. He warned Izuku that the training would be intense, but Izuku, having endured so much in his past, was determined to do whatever it took to avoid returning to his previous life. Nizu approached the two men, reminding them that Izuku had no name since he had lived on the streets for so long. He asked if Izuku would be okay with creating a new identity. Izuku eagerly agreed, expressing his frustration at being referred to as the green-haired punk by those he encountered. Nizu then asked Tsukachi for assistance in forging a new identity for Izuku. Tsukachi agreed, confident he could help, but questioned what name they would give him. Yagi proposed an idea, asking Izuku if he would accept being adopted. The young man was taken aback, but Yagi reassured him, stating his desire to take care of him and become the father he never had. Overwhelmed with emotion, Izuku rushed to Yagi, wrapping his arms around him and expressing his desire to be part of a family. Yagi promised not to let him down. Nizu then asked Izuku if he had a name in mind, and inquired about his age. Izuku, unsure of his exact age, estimated he was around 15. He shared a memory of a kind woman who had helped him in his youth but had passed away, leaving him alone. After some thought, he decided on the name Izuku, which he felt suited him. Yagi approved, declaring him Izuku Yagi. Weeks flew by, and with the right training and nutrition, Izuku transformed physically, gaining strength and height. Nizu also took the time to teach him the academic subjects he had missed, discovering that Izuku was quite intelligent and had learned a lot on his own. One morning, Sorahiko visited to speak with Toshinori while Izuku completed his morning training. After an hour, Toshinori called for Izuku, indicating they had an important matter to discuss. He noted how much Izuku had grown and mentioned that he and Torino believed Izuku was ready for the next step. Toshinori revealed that it was time for him to pass on his quirk. He expressed his admiration for Izuku's dedication to training and how he had endured the challenges they had set for him. Sorahiko clarified that they believed Izuku was ready to inherit the power and that they would train him to use it effectively before the upcoming UA exams. Izuku, feeling prepared, asked what he needed to do. With a grin, Toshinori transformed into his heroic form and handed Izuku a strand of his hair, instructing him to eat it. Izuku was shocked and protested, but Toshinori insisted that it was necessary to transfer his DNA. After some reluctance, Izuku swallowed the hair, grimacing at the taste. Once the hair was consumed, Toshinori explained that they would wait for a few hours to see how Izuku's body reacted. Excited about the prospect of pizza for lunch, Izuku invited Sorahiko to join them, while Toshinori was reminded not to forget his wallet. Later, back at the house, Izuku mentioned that he wasn't feeling well and wanted to take a nap. Concerned, Toshinori and Sorahiko speculated that it might be the quirk reacting with his body, believing he would soon be back to his energetic self. They discussed whether Toshinori should still take the teaching job at UA, contemplating the future ahead. At first, Toshinori accepted his role to scout students and find a successor, but now there was Izuku. Sorahiko urged him to accept the reality of the situation. He pointed out that Toshinori would not be the symbol of peace for much longer. He questioned how much time Toshinori believed he could continue as a hero, suggesting it would only be a few months or a year at most before the power within him faded completely. Sorahiko emphasized that Toshinori needed to consider his future, implying that he wouldn't want to be idle at 45. He expressed confidence that Toshinori would want to train Izuku and help shape him into a great hero. Toshinori acknowledged the truth in Sorahiko's words. He understood that one day the ember of One for All would leave his body, and he would have to find a way to announce his retirement from being a pro-hero. He considered that teaching could be a new adventure for him. Perhaps one day, All Might would fade away, allowing Toshinori Yagi to rise. He thought about discussing the possibility of teaching 2 classes at UA, one as All Might and another as Yagi with Nizu. Suddenly, they heard a faint sound coming from Izuku's room. The 2 men rushed in and found the boy in bed, drenched in sweat. Sorahiko touched Izuku's forehead and quickly withdrew his hand. Toshinori was alarmed to hear that Izuku was burning with a high fever. He questioned how this could happen, given that Izuku had a healing quirk and was rarely sick. Sorahiko admitted he didn't know what was wrong but insisted they needed to take Izuku to Chiyo. They jumped into Toshinori's pickup truck, and he sped toward UA. While Sorahiko called the nurse to inform her they were coming in with an emergency, they arrived at the school. Toshinori, strong and determined, carried Izuku into the nurse's office, with Sorahiko flying closely behind. A few students were surprised to see the number 1 hero in civilian clothes carrying a boy, but they cheered for All Might, thrilled to witness such a moment. Inside the nurse's office, they placed Izuku on a stretcher. Recovery Girl began examining him but was puzzled as to why his quirk wasn't activating to heal the fever. She admitted she had no idea what was happening and asked what had occurred that day. Toshinori explained that he had passed One for All to Izuku that morning. They had gone out for pizza, and when they returned home, Izuku had taken a nap, claiming he didn't feel well. Shortly after, they found him burning with fever and rushed him to her. Recovery Girl noted that One for All was a complex quirk that no one fully understood. For now, all they could do was monitor Izuku and hope for the best. She couldn't use her own quirk on him, as she was unsure of the potential consequences. She instructed Toshinori and Sorahiko to speak with Nizu, as she was certain half the school already knew they were there and would have many questions about the number 1 hero's presence at UA. She expressed surprise that the hall wasn't already crowded with students waiting for them. Toshinori thanked her, acknowledging her care for Izuku. Recovery Girl reminded him that Izuku was also her grandson, revealing that the story about him being the child of Toshinori and her late daughter was not just a cover. She had grown attached to him and considered him family. She urged them to go, promising to call if anything changed. As they left the nurse's office, they concocted a story about a child being hit by a car while walking near the school, with Toshinori and Sorahiko offering to take him to Recovery Girl for treatment. The students who overheard cheered for All Might, celebrating the hero's willingness to help even on his day off. Meanwhile, Izuku found himself in a dark place, struggling to understand where he was. Suddenly, a tall woman with long black hair appeared before him. She introduced herself as Nana Shimura, Toshinori's mentor. Izuku recognized her from the pictures his father had at home and shared how Toshinori often spoke of her as a wonderful hero who had almost raised him. Nana was pleased to learn that Toshinori had someone in his life, expressing her relief that he would not be alone. She noted that this made Izuku almost like her grandson. Izuku happily referred to her as his other grandmother, mentioning Grandma Chiyo, also known as Recovery Girl. Nana fondly recalled her friendship with Chiyo and expressed how much she missed her. Izuku mentioned that his grandfather missed her too and questioned if being with Nana meant he was dead. Nana reassured him that he was not dead, presuming that Toshinori had chosen him as his successor and passed on One for All. Izuku confirmed this, sharing his aspiration to become the next symbol of peace and protect the world like Nana and Toshinori had done. Nana encouraged him, affirming that he would make them proud. She then explained that they were inside One for All, where all previous wielders had left a part of their soul each time the quirk was passed on. She volunteered to speak with him because he had been entrusted to be the 9th holder of the quirk. Nana warned him that he would experience things differently than he expected. She offered him a gift, a part of her own quirk, named Float. Izuku was excited at the prospect of flying, like his grandfather. Nana clarified that while he wouldn't have air bursts from his feet, He would indeed be able to fly. She described how she used her quirk by imagining her body becoming weightless and allowing herself to rise into the sky. When she received One for All, her quirk had been enhanced, enabling her to fly at incredible speeds. Izuku wished he could see himself become a wonderful hero in the future, an incredible man. He felt the presence of his grandmother, who reminded him that she would always be with him. She urged him to promise not to make the same mistakes that others had made, to be happy, to find someone to love, and to have a family. She encouraged him not to let fear of villains keep him from protecting those he cared about. It was time for him to go. Though he hesitated, not wanting to leave her, she reassured him that One for All was a unique quirk, and perhaps they would talk again in the future. She expressed her love for him, and he promised to find a way to communicate with her again. He vowed to become a hero, the best hero, and to protect the world. As she faded from his sight, the darkness around him transformed into a bright light. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in the UA nursery, the workplace of his other grandmother. As he got up, he noticed something was different. His t-shirt felt too small, and his pants seemed oddly short. He walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, startled by the reflection. He had gained significant muscle, was taller, and appeared like a younger version of his father. He realized that this was what Nana had warned him about. He had undergone changes he hadn't expected. Exiting the bathroom, he called out to his grandmother, who responded with surprise at his transformation. She noted that his new quirk was impressive and that he resembled his father at the same age. She explained that his body had shut down to adapt to One for All. Izuku shared that Nana had visited him, revealing that each wielder of the quirk left a part of their soul behind, allowing her to communicate with him. His grandmother missed Nana and wanted to examine him further. After running some tests, she noted that he had grown significantly and had increased muscle mass, resembling a younger version of All Might. Excited, she suggested calling his father and the others to show them his new form. After a phone call, Izuku and his grandmother met with Sorahiko, Toshinori, and Nizu at Ground Beta. His father was amazed by his transformation, expressing pride in his son's newfound strength. Izuku explained that Nana had told him about the connection they shared through the quirk, and his father was thrilled to hear that. They reminisced about the joy of soaring through the city at night while patrolling, and his father encouraged him to master Nana's quirk. Izuku was eager to honor that request. Nizu suggested he demonstrate his new abilities, and Izuku hesitated, concerned about causing destruction. His father reassured him that the buildings were designed for training and could be rebuilt. With determination, Izuku prepared to use One for All, recalling his father's advice to channel his strength. He took a deep breath, focused, and unleashed his power with a mighty punch. The impact created a powerful gust of wind, followed by an explosive sound. In an instant, the building before him was reduced to rubble, leaving a canyon in its place. The group stood in awe, speechless at the sheer power Izuku had unleashed. Recovery Girl approached him, checking for any injuries. Izuku felt invincible, as if he could lift the world. His accomplishments filled everyone with pride, and they celebrated his ability to use the quirk effectively on his first try. However, Izuku recognized the need to learn control, as he didn't want to harm anyone with his strength. His uncle reassured him that they had time to help him master his abilities before the entrance exam. Grateful for their support, Izuku felt determined to learn and grow. Weeks passed, and under Toshinori's guidance, Izuku learned to regulate his strength. He practiced diligently, eventually mastering Nana's quirk and gaining the ability to fly. He truly loved the sensation of flying. Up in the sky, he cherished the feeling of the wind on his face, experiencing a profound sense of freedom. He recalled a day when Hawk mentioned in an interview that the best feeling in the world was soaring through the sky, flying free and letting go. He understood that sentiment completely. On the morning of the UA entrance exam, Toshinori drove his son to the school and left him at the entrance. He expressed his pride in his son, acknowledging that this was the next step toward becoming the next symbol of peace. Toshinori asked if Izuku was sure he didn't want to take the recommendation exam instead, mentioning that Endeavor was recommending his youngest son. Izuku affirmed his decision, explaining that eventually, people would discover that his father was All Might. He wanted to ensure that when that day came, no one would think he had gotten there solely because of his father's legacy. He loved his father dearly, but he wanted to prove to the world that he was his own hero and deserved to be there. Toshinori understood and felt proud of Izuku's determination. He believed that this decision confirmed he had made the right choice in passing down his quirk, one for all. It was no longer just Toshinori's, it was Izuku's now. He encouraged his son to go and show everyone who he was, urging him to make them all proud. Izuku entered the school and took his seat, beginning the written exam. He mentally thanked his uncle Nizu for all the tutoring he had received. Although he had never attended a traditional school, he knew his academic knowledge was top-notch. After the written portion, Present Mike explained the practical part of the test, which involved defeating robots. As Present Mike spoke, someone interrupted to point out a mistake in the brochure. When Present Mike clarified the fourth type of robot that was worth 0 points, everyone gathered at their designated zones. They then went to a locker room to change into more appropriate clothing for the physical test. Izuku's group arrived at Ground Beta, the same place where he had first used One for All. With a smile, he looked at the newly constructed buildings that stood where he had previously destroyed several of them months ago. Suddenly, Present Mike shouted a powerful, "Go!" Without hesitation, Izuku started running at great speed toward the doors, urging the other teens to follow his example. As the other students rushed into the zone to begin their test, they were met with a scene of many already broken robots on the ground. Izuku wasted no time, smashing every robot he encountered at the entrance. He then took to the sky to survey the area, noticing that he had left plenty of robots for the other examinees. Not wanting to be selfish and claim all the points for himself, he continued to fly around, descending to punch robots here and there, sometimes positioning himself in front of someone who was unaware of a robot about to attack from behind. After several minutes, he heard Present Mike's loud voice announcing that there were 2 minutes left. A moment later, the ground began to shake. He looked to see the source of the chaos and spotted a giant robot as tall as a building. He couldn't believe it. They had built an enormous mecha, which seemed excessive. As he observed the scene below, he saw everyone running from the colossal machine when he heard a cry for help. Without hesitation, he flew down to the source of the cry and found a girl trapped under some rubble. He rushed to her side and lifted the slab off her leg. He asked if she was okay, but she grimaced in pain, explaining that her leg was broken and hurt badly. He urged her to hurry as the robot was approaching. She suggested he save himself, but he refused to abandon her, insisting that he would protect her no matter what. He bent down and lifted her bridle style, telling her to hold on tight as he took off at high speed toward the temporary medical bay set up for the test, placing her gently on a stretcher. He promised to return and flew off to confront the giant robot wreaking havoc in the mock city. Back at the medical bay, the girl extended her hand in the direction he had gone, expressing disbelief that he intended to fight that thing. The medical staff reassured her, explaining that he was Izuku, their grandson, a good boy but a reckless one, always putting others' safety before his own. They began to tend to her injured leg, and she was given candy to help her feel better. She wanted to thank him for saving her but worried she might not see him again. The staff encouraged her to write down her name and number so they could ensure he would contact her soon. Meanwhile, Izuku flew toward the giant robot at incredible speed, creating a sonic boom as he broke the sound barrier. He clenched his fist, knowing that his uncle Nizu might be upset with him for destroying the robot, considering how costly it must have been to build. But he was determined to take on the challenge and punch the giant robot that day. When he arrived a few feet from the giant robot, he delivered a powerful punch. The robot didn't explode. Instead, it was completely obliterated. Everyone on the battlefield stood in shock, jaws dropped, as they witnessed someone destroy the massive machine with a single blow. They all looked up at the man soaring above them before he descended to the ground and picked up an injured individual, flying him to the medical bay. He approached Recovery Girl, introducing the wounded teenager. The teenager, feeling offended, gestured animatedly, expressing his discontent. He insisted that it was inappropriate to refer to an elder in such a manner and demanded an apology for the way he addressed the nurse, who dedicated herself to healing their wounds. The man explained that he called her grandma because she was indeed his grandmother. He stood beside Recovery Girl and gave her a gentle kiss on the cheek. He informed her that he would be heading home and asked her to tell his father that he would take the train, wanting some time to himself. She replied that it was fine but reminded him not to come home too late, as she planned to have dinner with his grandfather that evening. He thanked her and reassured her that he would be careful. The teenager, realizing his mistake, apologized for assuming the man was being impolite. He introduced himself as Tenya Ida from Somei Junior High. The man introduced himself as Izuku Yagi and noted Ida's engine quirk in his legs, asking if he was related to Ingenium. Ida confirmed that he was Ingenium's younger brother and expressed surprise at how quickly Izuku made the connection. Izuku explained that he enjoyed studying quirks and observed that Ida's was quite similar to his brother's. He speculated that while Ida might develop more horsepower and speed, he would have less maneuverability. Ida confirmed that Izuku's analysis was accurate and complimented him on his keen understanding of quirks. They shook hands before Izuku left, and Recovery Girl continued to heal Ida's injuries. Izuku wandered around the city for a few hours, helping elderly people cross the street and giving a few yen to those in need. He always carried money to help those who needed food. He needed to clear his head. The past year and a half had been the happiest time of his life. He couldn't thank his father enough for giving him a new life, and he was determined to keep his promise of becoming a great hero. Later that day, he returned home to find his father and grandparents waiting for him. His grandfather greeted him with enthusiasm, asking how the exam went and joking about how he had saved a young lady without staying long enough to receive a hero's kiss. Izuku laughed, explaining that he had stepped in because someone was in danger, and the girl likely forgot about him already. His grandmother chimed in, teasing him about a certain girl's phone number that she had, which he had missed because he flew off after punching the giant robot. Surprised, Izuku realized he might need to call her and thanked his grandmother for the information. His father then informed him that Power Loader was quite upset with him, quoting that he would have a stern talk with the boy who had pulverized his robot. Izuku was taken aback, realizing he was accepted into the hero class. His father congratulated him, explaining that they had all been impressed by his performance during the test, especially his act of heroism when he protected other applicants. He expressed how proud he was of Izuku. His father handed him an envelope, which contained a generous amount of money and a heartfelt note. The note praised Izuku for his hard work over the past year and a half, recalling how he had saved his father's life by breaking his guitar to stop a drunk driver. His father encouraged him to treat himself to a new guitar or two, emphasizing the importance of enjoying life as a teenager alongside his training. Izuku was overwhelmed by the generosity and expressed his gratitude, telling his father that he loved him. His father reciprocated the sentiment and announced that they would celebrate with some delicious KFC that evening. After dinner, Izuku excused himself to his room, wanting to relax after a long day. He put on some music and looked at the paper in his hand, contemplating whether he should call the girl. Over the past year and a half, he had mostly interacted with his father, grandparents, and a few others, having been too busy training and mastering One for All. He never really had the time to make friends his age. When he was still a homeless kid, the few people he interacted with were other homeless individuals, many of whom were either struggling with mental health issues or under the influence of hard drugs, making normal conversations nearly impossible. The only person he remembered having a few chats with was a blonde girl his age, who often talked about wanting to find love. She was a bit peculiar and disappeared one day. Now, he felt socially awkward about that situation but told himself he needed to start talking to kids his age soon when he began school. So, he decided to test the waters of being a teenager. He picked up his phone and started texting. He introduced himself, mentioning that they had met during the UA entrance exam and that the nurse had given him her number. He hoped it was okay to reach out. She confirmed that he was the green-haired boy who had saved her from the giant robot and introduced herself as Kyokajiro. She expressed her gratitude for his help, to which he responded that there was no need to thank him. Saving someone in need was what heroes did. Kyoka mentioned that she wished they could have spoken more during the exam and that she was lucky her grandmother had given her his number. Izuku was surprised to learn that she knew his grandmother, who had called him a reckless idiot. He felt embarrassed, but Kyoka reassured him that it was funny and that she cared about him. He insisted that she didn't need to thank him, as her safety was what mattered most to him. Kyoka complimented him, saying he was a nice guy, and he replied that he was trying his best to be a good hero. She then shared her own aspirations of becoming a good heroine and asked if he was free the next day. When he hesitated, she encouraged him to hang out with her, explaining that she wanted to make it up to him for saving her. He was taken aback by her interest but eventually agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. As they discussed their plans, Kyoka playfully suggested that he could bring his girlfriend along if he had one. Izuku clarified that he was single and straight, which made her laugh. She encouraged him to make friends, pointing out that he was too awesome to be alone. He was surprised by her compliment, especially since he had always focused on studying and training to become a strong hero rather than socializing. They agreed to meet the next day at 2 p.m., and Izuku felt a sense of anticipation about spending time with her. After their conversation, he wondered if he had just made a friend. The following day, after completing his morning training and getting ready, Izuku headed to the train station to meet Kyoka at the music store she had mentioned. Upon arriving, he spotted her waiting at the entrance, her purple hair and earphone jack making her easy to recognize. He greeted her enthusiastically, and she asked what kind of guitar he was looking for. He explained that he wanted an acoustic guitar for playing outside and an electric one for rock music. Kyoka led him inside, knowing the owner would help him find the right instruments. They spent nearly an hour trying out different guitars, and Izuku settled on two he really liked: a gray-silver Rainsong Hybrid Series acoustic guitar, made entirely from carbon fiber, and a classic black and white Gibson Les Paul Studio electric guitar. Since the electric model was out of stock, the seller agreed to ship it to Izuku's house along with an amplifier the following week. The two teenagers left the store with the acoustic guitar and decided to test it out. As they walked down the street, they chatted about MT Lady, a new heroine who had made her debut the previous week. They passed a homeless man sitting on the sidewalk, asking for money to buy food. Izuku approached him and placed a few yen in his hat. He leaned over and whispered an idea to Kyoka, who blushed slightly but agreed, finding it a great plan. Izuku took out his guitar, and Kyoka spoke briefly with the man before placing his hat in front of Izuku. He began to play a melody while Kyoka clapped along, and he started to sing, feeling a sense of joy in sharing this moment with his new friend. Izuku looked at Kyoka and asked her if she was happy in this modern world or if she needed more. He felt a longing for change during the good times and a fear of himself during the bad times. Kyoka, in turn, wondered if he was tired of trying to fill a void and if it was hard for him to keep things so intense. They both felt a sense of diving deep into their emotions, far from the shallow parts of life. As they performed, the crowd erupted in applause. Many people recorded the performance on their phones, and some approached, dropping money into their hat. Soon, the hat was filled with yen, and Kyoka picked it up to give to a poor man nearby, who had tears in his eyes. She told him to treat himself to something warm that night and wished him a nice day. The man expressed his gratitude, saying that Kami would know what they had done that day and bless them. Izuku smiled at Kyoka, feeling happy that he had followed his instincts to text her the day before. After saying goodbye to the cheering crowd, he and Kyoka began walking together. He asked her if she was hungry, to which she eagerly replied that she was. He suggested they get some yakitori, insisting it was his treat. He explained that his dad had given him money for guitars, and he still had plenty left, so he wanted to treat himself. Kyoka agreed but insisted that she would pay next time. Izuku was taken aback for a moment, realizing that this was what friendship felt like, and he could get used to it. They continued to chat as they walked, and Izuku remained vague about his childhood, letting Kyoka share more about hers. He didn't want her to know he had been a street child until recently. Perhaps he would share that later as their friendship grew. After spending a few hours together, Izuku walked Kyoka home, being a gentleman and aware that the streets could be unsafe at night. When they reached her place, they said goodbye, and she waved at him, promising to text later. As he walked away, he thought about how late it was and didn't want his dad to worry. He glanced around to see no one was watching, then jumped high, channeling his quirk to fly above the streets, reaching home in less than 5 minutes. When Kyoka entered her house, her parents greeted her with smiles. She casually asked what was up, and they teased her about what was going on in her life. She mentioned that she had spent the day hanging out with a friend. Her parents exchanged knowing looks and asked if she had seen social media that night. Curious, she replied that she hadn't checked her phone much. They handed her a tablet with a video of two young singers performing Shallow and raising money for a homeless man in the streets of Shizuoka. The video had already garnered over 250,000 views since it was uploaded, and comments were flooding in. Her father jokingly asked for the name of her boyfriend, to which she quickly clarified that Izuku was not her boyfriend but the guy who had saved her from a giant robot the day before. She explained that they hung out because he wanted to buy new guitars, and she helped him. Her parents assured her they believed her, and her mother encouraged her to invite Izuku over one day, praising both Kyoka's incredible voice and Izuku's talent. Kyoka felt a bit embarrassed by the praise but appreciated it. Her mother suggested that if her hero career didn't work out, she could become a famous singer. Kyoka liked the idea of being both a heroine and a singer, thanking her mom for the encouragement. As her parents prepared to call it a night, Kyoka headed to her room, ready to relax. Once in her room, she flopped onto her bed and checked her Facebook. She received a text from Izuku, letting her know he was home and heading to bed to prepare for training in the morning. Seeing his name brought a smile to her face. Days passed, and Izuku and Kyoka exchanged texts, mostly about music and hero-related topics. They hung out again, this time with Kyoka bringing her best friend, Momo. Izuku introduced himself, and Momo expressed her gratitude for saving her best friend's life. They shared stories about how they met when they were children at a charity event, and Momo mentioned that Kyoka had become like a little sister to her. Izuku enjoyed the camaraderie and felt a growing bond with both girls as they continued to share their experiences and dreams. Exam, did you ever think about being a hero in the future? Izuku mentioned that he was already accepted as a recommended student due to his academic awareness and the versatility of his quirk. When asked about his quirk, he explained that it was called creation, allowing him to convert his body lipids into any non-living thing he knew the atomic configuration of. His friend expressed excitement about the prospect of being in the same class, but then questioned how Izuku knew he was accepted. Izuku hesitated, revealing that he personally knew All Might, who had informed him of his acceptance. The friend was impressed but pointed out that All Might didn't teach at UA. Izuku quickly corrected himself, saying that All Might was starting this year, but asked his friend to keep it a secret to avoid trouble. Feeling left out, another friend, Kyoka, lamented that she still didn't know if she was accepted. Izuku reassured her, confident that she would get in, especially since her quirk was excellent for reconnaissance and infiltration. He decided to call his uncle for help. On the phone, Izuku asked his uncle Nizu for a favor regarding Kyoka, who was anxious about her acceptance. Nizu inquired about Kyoka's friend who was already accepted, and upon learning it was Momo Yaoyorozu, he revealed that she was part of one of the wealthiest families in Japan. After some back and forth, Nizu confirmed that Kyoka was accepted into the same class as Izuku and Momo. Izuku quickly clarified that Kyoka was not his girlfriend, despite his uncle's teasing. After hanging up, he turned to Kyoka, who had heard about a YouTube video featuring them. She insisted that she hadn't claimed they were lovers. Izuku reassured her, and they learned they would all be in the same class soon. Kyoka excitedly hugged Izuku, and Momo playfully suggested that she would leave the hugging to them. The three friends spent the afternoon chatting and shopping at the mall, with Izuku jokingly complaining about carrying Momo's bags filled with shoes. A few days later, on the first day of school, Izuku tried to bribe his dad for information about his homeroom teacher, but Toshi remained tight-lipped. Upon entering classroom 1A, he spotted Kyoka chatting with Momo while Ida lectured a classmate about putting his feet on the table. When the classmate became angry and released a few small explosions, Izuku stepped in front of Ida, urging him to leave the angry student alone and take his seat as homeroom was about to start. He then settled into the empty desk next to Kyoka, right in front of Momo. Kyoka greeted him, and he returned the greeting, also acknowledging Momo. Their conversation was interrupted when the door opened, and a man with long black hair entered, introducing himself as Shota Aizawa, their teacher. He wasted no time and instructed them to put on their PE uniforms and head outside to the field. Once outside, Aizawa informed the students that he preferred to teach without the usual orientation speeches. Instead, he announced that they would conduct 8 physical tests using their quirks, expecting everyone to give their all. He warned that anyone who slacked off would be expelled. Without waiting for a response, he called out Izuku, asking how far he could throw a ball without using his quirk in middle school. Izuku explained that he had been homeschooled and had no experience in middle school. Aizawa instructed him to throw the ball as far as he could without stepping out of the circle. Izuku prepared to pitch the ball, warning everyone to move back and advising Kyoka to cover her ears. Momo created earmuffs for Kyoka as they stepped back. Izuku threw the ball with all his strength, creating a shockwave that knocked several students to the ground. The force shattered windows in the building behind them, and a sonic boom echoed through the area, likely alerting nearby heroes. Realizing he might have gone overboard, Izuku joked with Aizawa about not wanting to be held responsible for the windows. Aizawa, recognizing the situation, called Nizu to inform him that everything was fine, confirming that Izuku had indeed gone all out during the test. Nizu assured Aizawa that he would handle the situation. And he hung up. Aizawa looked at his device, unable to believe his eyes. The device indicated an error message, meaning the ball had either flown outside the Earth's atmosphere or had been vaporized. He decided to mark the highest score for that one since the device couldn't tell him where the ball was or if it still existed. He then addressed the class, encouraging them not to feel bad about the outcome. This was exactly what he expected from each of them, to give everything they had and go beyond, plus ultra. The students resumed the test Aizawa had given them. Izuku ended up in first place due to his physical prowess, followed by Momo in second place and a boy named Shoto Todoroki, who had an ice quirk. At lunchtime, Izuku was in the food court looking for an empty spot to sit when he heard his name called. He turned around to see a majority of his class gathered at one table. He approached and sat between Kyoka and a boy with red hair. Kirishima complimented Izuku on his ball pitch, calling it manly. Izuku introduced himself, and everyone began to introduce themselves as they chatted about their quirks and other hero-related topics. Tu Azui asked Izuku about his quirk, noting how fast he ran and how strong he appeared during the ball throw. She mentioned seeing him fly over the sand field during the long jump. Izuku explained that his quirk was called Ultra Body, which granted him enhanced speed, strength, stamina, durability, and agility. He also had the ability to heal quickly. Tsuyu expressed her admiration, saying that he would become popular as a hero. Mina Ashido remarked that she felt she had seen Izuku somewhere before, and after some back and forth, she discovered he was the one from a YouTube video where he and Kyoka had raised money for a homeless man. Izuku quickly clarified that he and Kyoka were just friends, not dating. Mina teased him about being single, suggesting he could ask her out. Izuku, flustered, insisted that he didn't even know her and that he wasn't interested in dating anyone. He then picked up his lunch and hurried out of the food court. Mina joked about breaking him, while Kyoka tried to deny any feelings for Izuku. Momo supported the idea that Kyoka had a crush on him, which caused Kyoka to rush out of the room, flustered. Momo and Mina exchanged plans to help their friends realize their feelings for each other as they laughed and gathered their things to head back to class. The following day, everyone was in class waiting for the foundational hero studies teacher. Only Izuku knew who it was, and he kept the information to himself, eager to see everyone's reaction when they met All Might in person. A few seconds later, the door swung open dramatically. All Might entered, announcing his presence with enthusiasm. The class erupted in excitement, marveling at his appearance and costume. He explained that they would be building their hero foundation through various trials, starting with a battle trial. He instructed everyone to change into their gear and gather at Grounds B, emphasizing that they were officially heroes from that moment on. As everyone grabbed their gear and headed to the locker room to change, they chatted among themselves. When they finished, they gathered at Grounds B, where All Might arrived. He noted that they were only missing Izuku, who had gone to the bathroom before the exercise. Suddenly, a shadow fell across the ground, and everyone looked up to see something descending rapidly. The figure landed with a thud in front of All Might. As the dust settled, they saw a tall, muscular teen in a black and white costume, with green hair and a gold belt buckle. Izuku apologized for being late, explaining that he had followed his father's advice to make a spectacular entrance. All Might praised his father's wisdom and announced that it was time for battle training. He would randomly assign teams of 2 for an indoor battle, with the goal of retrieving a bomb in less than 10 minutes. Everyone picked a random number to find their partner. Izuku was teamed with a girl named Uraraka, who had the ability to negate gravity. They were the hero team for the event, facing off against Ida and Bakugo. The 2 faux villains entered the building with a few minutes to strategize. During this time, All Might approached Izuku and whispered something to him. He complimented Izuku on his costume, expressing understanding about why he kept it a secret, hinting at a surprise. He asked about the belt buckle, to which Izuku explained it belonged to his grandmother, Nana, and that his grandfather had given it to him recently as a keepsake. All Might expressed his pride in Izuku and encouraged him to prepare for the test. Unbeknownst to them, Jiro overheard everything due to her quirk, which granted her perfect hearing. She was astonished to learn that Izuku's father was All Might, exclaiming in disbelief that she shouldn't have heard that. The test proceeded smoothly. When All Might gave the signal, Uraraka floated next to Izuku, who lifted her by the waist and took to the air. Spotting Ida alone with the bomb, he broke the window and flew them inside. In less than 2 seconds he reached Ida, gently pushing him away from the bomb and touching the false device, concluding the match in under 40 seconds. The announcement of the hero team's victory echoed through the room, calling everyone to the examination area. As they entered, Bakugo rushed toward Izuku, unleashing a few explosions from his hands. He confronted Izuku, accusing him of thinking he was better and demanding a real fight. Izuku, trying to calm him down, pointed out that it was just an exercise and urged him to stop acting like a child. Bakugo, undeterred, swung his arm for an explosive punch, but Izuku caught his hand just inches from his face, redirecting the explosion harmlessly to the ceiling. All Might intervened, commanding Bakugo to cease his behavior and to calm down. Bakugo dismissed him, but All Might insisted they resume training. As the class continued with fight simulations, Izuku observed closely, eager to learn about his classmates' quirks. At the end of the day, All Might took Bakugo to the principal's office to discuss his behavior. Everyone changed into formal clothes, and since the school day was over, they headed home. Jiro approached Izuku, asking if he was busy that night. He replied that he wasn't. She urged him to drop the formalities and suggested he could call her by her first name or a nickname. Izuku decided to call her Kai, as Yayarosa did. Jiro then asked if they could hang out, mentioning she needed to discuss something important in private. Izuku felt a rush of panic, wondering if she wanted to confess her feelings. When she asked if he was okay, he assured her he was, and they made their way to his house. Once there, they settled in the living room, where Izuku prepared snacks and drinks for them. Jiro asked him to promise he wouldn't be mad at her, to which he replied that he could never be mad at his best friend. She insisted that what she had to tell him was delicate. He placed his hands on her shoulders and looked her in the eyes, reassuring her that nothing would change their friendship. She began to explain her quirk, describing how her earphone jack could expand and connect to various devices, granting her incredible hearing. Then, she revealed that she knew about his connection to All Might. Izuku was taken aback, worried about how she had discovered this. He confirmed that All Might was indeed his father and pleaded with her not to tell anyone, expressing his desire to be recognized for his own accomplishments rather than as All Might's son. Jiro, feeling compelled to act, jumped into his arms and hugged him tightly, burying her face in his chest. She expressed her admiration for him, affirming that they would love him for who he was, not just because of his lineage. Izuku, feeling uncertain, reassured her that he appreciated her friendship and understood if she needed space due to the dangers associated with All Might. Before he could finish, Jiro pointed her earphone jacks at him, emphasizing her commitment to their friendship. She declared that she would always stand by his side, no matter what happened. Izuku, feeling relieved, thanked her. Curious, Jiro asked about the belt buckle and his grandmother. Izuku explained that it belonged to his other grandmother, Nana, who was also a hero with a quirk similar to his own, involving flight and super strength. He pointed to a picture on the wall, sharing a piece of his family history with her. She was beautiful, and he wished he had met her before she died fighting a villain. He felt a pang of sadness. It was normal to have those thoughts, his friend reassured him. He invited her to his room to play some music, and she agreed, looking forward to the time together. A couple of hours later, Toshinori returned home to find his son and one of his classmates in the kitchen preparing dinner. His son greeted him, announcing that dinner would be ready in 15 minutes. Toshinori acknowledged both of them, surprised to see his son's classmate there. The two teenagers laughed, and his son explained that he had overheard a conversation at school, revealing a secret that should have been kept quieter. Toshinori thanked the classmate for the heads-up and asked what they were having for dinner. She replied that they were making pasta with Alfredo sauce and garlic bread, to which Toshinori expressed his excitement and assured her they would drive her home later. The next day, everyone was seated in class except for two students, Bakugo and Hagakure. Aizawa entered the room and informed the class that Bakugo was absent due to his actions the previous day, resulting in a suspension. He noted that Hagakure was also missing and asked if anyone knew why. A classmate explained that Hagakure had been stuck in ice during her match against Todoroki and was feeling unwell, needing to rest to recover for school the next day. Aizawa acknowledged this and mentioned that they were supposed to elect a class president but would postpone it due to the absences. He then proceeded with the day's lesson. After the regular lessons, lunchtime arrived, and everyone gathered at the same table when suddenly an alarm blared. Senior students informed them that there was an intrusion on school grounds, causing panic among the students. In the chaos, Izuku spotted people getting hurt and flew over the crowd to help his friends. He quickly picked up Kyoka and noticed Kirishima using his quirk to shield Yaoyorozu and Azui. Angered by the reckless behavior, Izuku shouted for everyone to calm down and help those who were injured, emphasizing that the only threat was the journalists outside. His commanding presence brought a sudden stillness, and the students began to assist each other in a more orderly manner. After lunch, Aizawa instructed the class to change into their hero suits for a special training session. They arrived at the USJ and met the space heroine 13, who warned them about the dangers of quirks. Kirishima asked Aizawa if the figures emerging from a portal were robots, but Aizawa quickly realized they were villains and ordered the class to retreat and call for backup. As Aizawa engaged the villains, a misty figure approached the class, claiming to represent the League of Villains and announcing their intent to kill All Might. 13 attacked the mist villain, but he countered her attack, leaving her seriously injured. The mist villain then scattered the students across different areas of the training center. Izuku landed in the water zone on a boat with Azui and Mineta. Without wasting any time, he jumped into the water and swiftly took out the villains present before helping his friends to the entrance. He instructed them to stay and treat 13's wounds while he flew off to protect everyone else. He soared through the air, arriving at each zone and incapacitating the villains before they could react. He directed his classmates to gather at the entrance for safety. In the last zone, he found Kyoka, Momo, and Kirishima, who were defending themselves against attackers. Just in time, Izuku blocked an electric attack aimed at the girls while Kirishima fought off a rocky opponent. He dispatched the remaining thugs with the same efficiency he had shown earlier. Kyoka expressed her relief at his arrival, and he reassured her that he would always be there for her. Kirishima thanked him for the timely rescue, and Izuku assigned him the task of escorting the girls to the entrance, asking him to protect everyone. He then declared his intention to assist Aizawa, knowing that the enemy they faced was on another level. Despite Kirishima's concerns about their status as students, Izuku was determined to help Aizawa, insisting that he would protect him just like everyone else. He urged Kirishima to take care of Kyoka and the others before flying off to join Aizawa. Upon reaching Aizawa, Izuku announced his arrival and readiness to help, insisting that he wouldn't back down from the fight. Aizawa, injured but aware of Izuku's capabilities, reluctantly acknowledged his determination. Izuku reassured him that he would keep the villains occupied while Aizawa retreated to safety. Aizawa warned him not to take unnecessary risks, but Izuku was resolute, promising not to let his teacher down. Aizawa began to run from the fight, knowing he didn't stand a chance against the villains. He felt uneasy about abandoning his students, but he trusted that they could handle themselves, especially since one of them was the son of that big blonde hero. Izuku positioned himself in front of the mist-covered villain, a man in his 20s surrounded by strange hands, alongside a massive creature with an exposed brain. Izuku confronted the villain, questioning why they had attacked his class. The villain, introducing himself as Shigaraki, scoffed at Izuku's lack of manners and revealed that he was the leader of the League of Villains. He claimed they were there to make a statement to the world and eliminate All Might, suggesting that Izuku's classmates were likely in danger. Izuku dismissed Shigaraki's threats, boasting about defeating the henchman in mere minutes and declaring that Shigaraki would be next. Shigaraki laughed, belittling Izuku's strength compared to the formidable creature known as Nomu, which had been bioengineered to take down All Might. As the battle commenced, Izuku charged at Shigaraki, recalling his grandfather's advice to always target the leader first. Just as he was about to land a punch, Nomu intercepted him. The creature was a relentless force and they exchanged blows at incredible speed. Despite their apparent equal strength, Izuku couldn't understand why his punches weren't landing effectively. Shigaraki explained that Nomu was a mindless drone created to defeat All Might, equipped with multiple quirks, including super strength and shock absorption. Izuku, undeterred, realized that Nomu's abilities had limits and decided to push harder. With renewed determination, Izuku unleashed a flurry of punches, moving so fast that he appeared as a blur. In a decisive moment, he grabbed Nomu by the head and launched himself into the air, breaking through the glass roof with a sonic boom. Shigaraki, frustrated, ordered Kurogiri to warp Nomu back, but Kurogiri couldn't locate them. As Shigaraki prepared to attack the students, another sonic boom echoed through the air. He looked up to see Izu descending, his suit torn and an intense look of anger on his face. In his hands, he held the defeated Nomu, its body charred and limbs destroyed. Just then, All Might arrived at the USJ, mirroring his son's fierce expression. He called out to Izuku, concerned for his well-being. Izuku reassured him, admitting he was just a bit tired after the tough fight. Shigaraki, enraged, demanded to know how Izuku had defeated Nomu, accusing him of cheating. Izuku explained that he had flown at supersonic speed, burning through Nomu's cells faster than they could regenerate. Shigaraki, furious, charged at Izuku, but All Might intervened, delivering a powerful punch that knocked Shigaraki out cold. As the dust settled, All Might declared the fight over and assured Izuku that he could rest now. Just then, the mist villain opened a portal and retrieved a sword, preparing to strike. Izuku, noticing the danger, instinctively jumped in front of All Might to protect him. In a heart-stopping moment, All Might turned to see Izuku impaled by the sword, gripping the mist villain's arm to prevent him from escaping. Overcome with fury, All Might rushed at the villain, delivering a blow that disrupted his concentration and caused him to close the portal on his own arm, incapacitating himself. The other students watched in horror as Izuku fell to the ground, the sword still lodged in his chest. Toshinori rushed to his son, removing the blade and pleading for him to stay conscious. Izuku reassured his father that he would be okay, though he was feeling the effects of exhaustion from the earlier fight. Toshinori expressed his pride in Izuku for protecting everyone, and Izuku joked about taking a nap. As Toshinori cradled his son, the remaining villains lay unconscious on the ground. Minutes later, the teachers arrived to assist, restraining the villains and ensuring the students were evacuated, despite some reluctance from Izuku's friends. Once the students were safely outside, Toshinori felt his energy waning, his body beginning to deflate. Recovery Girl arrived to tend to Aizawa's wounds and noticed Izuku unconscious. Concerned, she asked what had happened. Toshinori explained that Izuku had fought bravely against a powerful villain and had been injured while protecting him. He reassured her that Izuku's healing factor would kick in soon, though it was slower than usual due to his fatigue. Recovery Girl instructed them to place Izuku on a stretcher so she could care for him at school. Aside from Aizawa, no one was hurt during the invasion. Every student told Izuku that he flew from zone to zone to protect everyone, defeating almost 60 villains by himself in just a few minutes. He must be exhausted. The speaker felt immense pride for him and decided to bring him to UA. He needed rest, and his friends would want to see him soon. Izuku opened his eyes and felt a pressure on his chest. He turned his head to find the black and purple hair of his best friend resting on him. Next to her, on a small couch, Momo rested her head on Kirishima's shoulder, both of them asleep. Izuku lamented not having his phone, thinking it could have captured a funny moment. Kyoka stirred, moving closer and hugging him tightly, expressing her worry about almost losing him. Izuku greeted her and jokingly asked her to take a picture of their friends, who looked adorable together. Kyoka expressed her relief that he was okay, recalling her fear when she saw him injured. She scolded him for taking such risks, but Izuku insisted he needed to protect everyone, including his father. Kyoka admitted her deep feelings for him, but when Izuku asked her to repeat what she said, she hesitated. He leaned in and kissed her gently, surprising her. Once she realized he felt the same, she kissed him back, wrapping her arms around him. After a moment, they pulled away, looking into each other's eyes, confirming their feelings for one another. Kirishima suddenly woke up, congratulating them on their relationship, which made both Izuku and Kyoka blush. Momo joined in, expressing her happiness for them. Izuku, feeling a bit overwhelmed, realized he was now Kyoka's boyfriend, which she confirmed with a playful poke. They discussed their injuries from the battle, and Izuku felt relieved to hear that everyone was mostly okay. Kyoka reassured him that they were training to be heroes and that while they might face danger, she would always do her best to return to him. Izuku promised to protect her, and she nestled back into his arms, feeling safe and content. Moments later, Kirishima and Momo returned with Izuku's clothes, followed by Recovery Girl, who expressed her concern for him. Recovery Girl reminded Izuku that a sword wound was serious, and he promised to be more careful in the future. She informed him that the school would be closed for a few days to update security and advised him to call his uncle once he got home. Izuku thanked her, knowing that his grandfather would likely hear about his injuries from his father. Recovery Girl playfully warned him about the consequences he would face at home, and she asked Kyoka to ensure Izuku got home safely. Kyoka agreed, and Recovery Girl revealed that she had known they would end up together all along, attributing it to grandmotherly intuition. Thanks, Recovery Girl. Momo playfully suggested that Izuku call her grandma, to which he agreed. Once Izuku got dressed, they all exited the school. He was about to walk toward the train station when Momo stopped him, saying her personal chauffeur would bring everyone home since it was late. Momo reassured him, explaining that it was illegal for him to fly home, and she didn't want him to get caught by his father. Izuku asked Kyoka not to tell his dad about his plans. Momo teased Izuku, calling him a bad boy, and Kyoka playfully defended him, leading to laughter among the 4 students. They all agreed to take Momo's ride home. When the limousine arrived, they jumped in and began chatting about the emotions they experienced during that challenging day. They dropped Kirishima off first and then Izuku. As Izuku watched the limousine drive away, he waited until it was out of sight before entering his house. Inside, he was greeted by his father, but before he could respond, he had to block a flying kick from Sorahiko. Sorahiko asked if Izuku could still dodge, to which he confidently replied that he could. Sorahiko reminded him that he needed to remember that skill for the next time someone tried to attack him. Izuku acknowledged his grandfather's advice and felt proud when Sorahiko praised him for protecting everyone during the incident at the USJ. Izuku then shared his concerns about the villain they faced, mentioning that he had multiple quirks and was created, which led to a serious conversation about All for One's return. The school closed for a few days to reinforce security and investigate how the villains infiltrated the premises. During the police investigation, they brought in a hero with a quirk that forced people to reveal the truth upon contact. They learned that the villains called themselves the League of Villains, led by a blue-haired man named Tamura Shigaraki, who mentioned having a master that he referred to as All for One. Their goal was to destroy the Hero Society, and their first move was to eliminate the symbol of peace himself. Toshinori was deeply concerned, as Shigaraki's words confirmed his suspicions. Shigaraki revealed the location of the villain's hideout, prompting All Might and the police to assemble a strike team. However, they found the hideout empty, with only a television in the center of the room. All for One's voice echoed through the screen, taunting All Might about Shigaraki's failure and expressing his intent to forge a new successor to defeat him. Toshinori knew he had to protect his son and claimed he had no successor, vowing to protect the country from evildoers like All for One. After leaving the bar, the police gathered evidence but found nothing significant. All Might returned to UA to report to Nizu about the situation. The following day, Toshinori stayed home to discuss the matter with Izuku, emphasizing the need for Izuku to accelerate his training to become stronger. They understood that if All for One discovered Izuku was the 9th holder of One for All, he would relentlessly pursue him. The school decided to remain closed until the annual sports festival, instructing all students to train hard in preparation. Izuku trained diligently every day from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. Afterward, he enjoyed time with Kyoka, going on dates, playing guitar, or simply cuddling while listening to music. On the day of the sports festival, everyone gathered in a waiting room, preparing for the event. Todoroki approached Yagi before they were called. He acknowledged Izuku's strength but expressed doubt about whether he was stronger than him. Izuku placed a hand on Todoroki's shoulder and smiled, encouraging him to give his best in their upcoming match. Todoroki, however, insisted that he was not Izuku's buddy but rather his enemy. Izuku responded that while they might not be friends, he did not consider Todoroki his enemy either. Before Todoroki could reply, Present Mic called all the students to the field. As they walked, Izuku was called to give a speech as the first-year representative. He stepped onto the stage, closed his eyes for a moment, and then smiled brightly as he addressed the crowd. He expressed that while they were there to entertain, the true purpose was to showcase their abilities as the next generation of heroes. He encouraged everyone to remember their faces and smiles, as they would be there to protect them in the future. The crowd applauded enthusiastically, and Midnight, impressed by Izuku's charisma, took back the microphone to announce the next game, an obstacle race. Izuku returned to his class and stood next to Kyoka, noticing Todoroki preparing to use his ice powers. As soon as Present Mic gave the signal, Izuku jumped, grabbing Kyoka by the waist, while Todoroki encased everyone in ice. Once the ice stopped spreading, Izuku placed his girlfriend gently on the ground. He expressed his gratitude, saying he appreciated her help but asked her to promise not to assist him further, as he wanted to demonstrate his abilities independently. She agreed, stating they would be rivals for the day, but they could dine together that evening. He smiled at her, blowing a kiss before taking off into the air, determined to show the world he would become the next symbol of peace. Gaining altitude, he flew at high speed and landed at the finish line, sitting down to wait for the others to complete the race. Midnight, already present, was astonished to see him arrive in less than 2 minutes, as the race typically took around 40 minutes for the fastest student. She recalled his potential and decided to spend the remaining time teasing him with advice about his relationship with Kyoka. For Izuku, those 30 minutes felt like the longest of his life. Several minutes later, the next participants crossed the finish line, and Midnight announced the second event, a cavalry battle. She explained that teams of 2 to 4 would compete to steal each other's headbands, with Izuku's worth 10 million points. Everyone glared at him, eager to claim his points, but the green-haired teenager remained confident. He approached Kyoka to get her attention, acknowledging her desire to compete alone but reminding her that it was a team event. She agreed to join him, and when the time came to begin, he lifted her into his arms in a bridal carry. She expressed her surprise, noting it wasn't a very combat-oriented position, to which he replied that they weren't planning to fight. Instead, he intended to spend the next 10 minutes alone with her, sharing kisses in the sky. As the cavalry battle unfolded, they enjoyed their time together, and Kyoka found it one of the most exhilarating experiences of her life. When the event concluded, they landed on the grass, smiling at each other while Midnight declared their team the grand winner, winking at the couple. Present Mic announced a 1.5-hour break before the third event. Izuku and Kyoka joined nearly everyone from Class 1A4. During the meal, Mineta and Kaminari attempted to trick the girls into performing a cheerleader dance by claiming it was Aizawa's idea. Izuku, not falling for their scheme, decided to verify the truth and quickly ran to ask Aizawa, returning in under 5 minutes. He informed the girls it was a false alarm and that the two boys were trying to manipulate them for their amusement. He warned Mineta and Kaminari that Aizawa wanted to speak with them immediately. The two perverts, realizing Izuku was the strongest in the class and upset with them, hurried off to find Aizawa. After finishing his meal, Izuku was approached by Todoroki, who insisted on speaking with him privately. Izuku, however, was not interested and declined, leading to Todoroki's frustration. He wanted to confront Izuku about his doubts regarding his connection to All Might but decided to wait for another opportunity. When the break ended, midnight called for the final event of the day, the one-on-one battles. The first match was Shizuki from Class 1B against Todoroki, who quickly encased her in ice, ending the fight in seconds. The next battle featured Tetsu from Class 1B against Shinso, a student from general education. Shinso attempted to make Tetsu speak but was met with silence. Tetsu transformed into a metal form and swiftly knocked Shinso out of the ring with a solid punch. The third battle was Tokoyami against Ida, where Ida used his speed to push Tokoyami out of bounds before Dark Shadow could intervene. The fourth match saw Azui outmaneuvering Ishido, using her agility to toss Ishido outside the ring. In the fifth fight, Kirishima faced Ojiro and won by knockout. Next, Kyoka battled Uraraka, but without any equipment to enhance her quirk, she relied on hand-to-hand combat. Uraraka ultimately triumphed by touching Kyoka, causing her to float and forcing her to forfeit to avoid a hard fall. The following match was Kendo from Class 1B against Momo, who created a stun gun to incapacitate Kendo from a distance. Izuku's turn came next as he faced Monoma, the blonde copycat from Class 1B. The match ended in less than 5 seconds when midnight signaled the start. Izuku vanished from his position and reappeared in front of Monoma, pushing him out of bounds before he could react. The second round began with Todoroki against Tetsu, and the fight was brief, as Todoroki encased half the battlefield in ice once more. The fight began with Ida facing Azui, who cleverly used her tongue to trip him out of bounds. Kirishima won his match against Uraraka by delivering a solid punch to her midsection. After claiming his victory, he gently picked her up and carried her to Recovery Girl's tent, apologizing for hitting her so hard and expressing that it wasn't very gentlemanly. The last fight of the second round featured Momo against Izuku. When midnight signaled the start, Momo anticipated that Izuku would try to push her out of bounds, so she prepared a shield to block him. However, Izuku, not wanting to hurt her, moved at incredible speed, positioned himself behind her, and gently placed her on the ground outside the battlefield. Izuku expressed his regret, stating he didn't want to hurt her. Momo, though pouting, understood she didn't stand much chance against him. She acknowledged that at least she lost to the strongest among them. The third round commenced with Todoroki facing Azui, who ultimately forfeited after feeling drowsy due to her quirk, which made her susceptible to hibernation in the cold that Todoroki unleashed. The next match was Kirishima against Izuku. Knowing Kirishima was eager for a challenge, Izuku engaged him, delivering punches while Kirishima activated his quirk to become as hard as possible. However, Kirishima eventually reached his limit, and Izuku finished the fight with a decisive punch to his midsection, knocking the wind out of him. Kirishima fell to the ground, acknowledging Izuku's victory with a compliment about the manly fight. With Kirishima forfeiting, Izuku was declared the winner, and the final battle between him and Shoto Todoroki would take place in 10 minutes. Each fighter retreated to their waiting rooms to relax before the last match of the day. Izuku felt no nerves. He was aware that Todoroki would likely attempt a swift ice attack at the start, and he was prepared to counter it. Suddenly, the door burst open, revealing a towering man with flames flickering from his head. Izuku recognized him as Endeavor. He informed the hero that he was in the wrong room, as his son was next door. Endeavor insisted on speaking with Izuku, acknowledging his strength and inquiring about rumors of his connection to All Might. Izuku firmly stated that it was none of Endeavor's business and requested him to leave, as he had an important match approaching. Endeavor's anger flared, and he demanded Izuku speak. Unfazed, Izuku stood his ground, confronting the man and asserting that he would not be intimidated. As Endeavor attempted to grab him, Izuku applied pressure to his arm, forcing him to kneel despite the flames burning his hand. Izuku warned Endeavor to leave and threatened that if he approached again, he would regret it. He released Endeavor, who exited the room, seething with anger and vowing that Izuku would suffer against his perfect weapon. After Endeavor left, Izuku called his father to inform him about the encounter. He recounted how Endeavor had questioned his lineage and how he had defended himself, even breaking the man's arm in the process. His father expressed outrage at the incident, but Izuku reassured him that he was still only Toshinori Yagi's son, not All Might's. He promised that one day he would make Endeavor pay for his arrogance. With the call concluded, Izuku cracked his knuckles and made his way to the battle stage. As he stepped onto the platform, the crowd erupted in cheers for both him and Todoroki. He approached Todoroki and casually mentioned his recent encounter with Endeavor, calling him an arrogant man. Todoroki acknowledged this, and Izuku declared that he would show Endeavor who the strongest truly was. Midnight, the referee, reminded them to maintain civility during the national event. Izuku simply smirked and winked at her. When the match began, Todoroki wasted no time, unleashing a massive glacier. Midnight was about to intervene when she heard cracking sounds coming from the ice. Moments later, the ice shattered, revealing an unharmed Izuku emerging as if it were nothing. Izuku taunted Todoroki, questioning if that was all he had to offer. As Todoroki sent another wave of ice, Izuku responded with a punch, shattering the attack midair. Todoroki continued to unleash wave after wave of ice, but Izuku effortlessly countered each one, showing no signs of fatigue. Izuku remarked that he was starting to get bored and challenged Todoroki to make a real attempt to attack him. Todoroki was not in good shape. He had been using too much ice, and his body began to suffer from the cold. Despite this, he refused to use his own power. He unleashed another wave of ice, but Izuku did not even attempt to dodge it, as Todoroki's attacks were starting to weaken. Izuku had reached his limit. He thought to himself that Todoroki was just as arrogant as his father, and he was determined to show them both what true power was. He positioned himself in a fighting stance and began to run at incredible speed toward his opponent. He punched the air just inches away from Todoroki, creating a powerful burst of wind that sent Todoroki flying across the field, crashing against the concrete wall. The force of the wind was so strong that it caused the spectators to lose their hats and belongings, but the excitement of the match had everyone cheering for the green-haired teenager. As Midnight regained her footing, she saw Todoroki unconscious and announced the result of the match. Shoto Todoroki was out of bounds, and Izuku Yagi was declared the winner of the sports festival. Izuku stood in the center of the arena with his fist raised in triumph, smiling at the crowd. Midnight approached him, holding the microphone out for him to give a brief victory speech. He expressed his gratitude to Midnight and shared a message with everyone. He reminded them that one day the symbol of peace, their beloved All Might, would retire. While All Might was the greatest hero of all time, he was still human and would eventually step down. Izuku reassured the people of Japan that the symbol of peace was immortal. Whenever one hero was no longer able to serve, another would take their place. He declared that he would be the one to protect them all when All Might was no longer there. To Izuku's surprise, All Might appeared beside him, smiling as he took the microphone. He addressed the people of Japan, affirming that their future was in good hands with Izuku ready to protect them. He personally endorsed Izuku as one of the greatest future heroes they would witness soon, urging everyone to give him a round of applause. The rest of the day was filled with celebration. All Might personally awarded medals to the 4 finalists. Azui and Kirishima shared third place, each receiving a bronze medal. The second place was left empty, as Todoroki was unable to attend due to his injuries. Izuku proudly accepted the gold medal from All Might, who embraced him warmly, like a father to a son. All Might expressed his pride in Izuku, telling him that he had shown everyone what he was capable of and that Nana would have been proud. Izuku thanked his father, feeling that it meant a lot to him. As the festival concluded, All Might delivered a brief speech before wishing everyone a good day. Izuku left the school with Kyoka by his side, holding hands as they planned for a date night. They each went home briefly before Izuku borrowed his father's pickup truck to visit Kyoka's house. Upon arriving at the Jiro residence, he was greeted by Kyotoku and Mika Jiro, who congratulated him on his impressive victory. They chatted for a few minutes while Kyoka finished getting dressed for their outing. When Kyoka emerged from her room in a beautiful black dress, Izuku was momentarily speechless. He had always found her beautiful, but tonight she looked extraordinary. Once he regained his composure, he complimented her, and they left her house, walking to the truck. Kyoka asked about the pickup, and Izuku explained that it belonged to his dad and that he had just gotten his driver's license 2 weeks ago. They joked about calling it the All Might Mobile, to which Izuku responded that it actually existed, having been built for All Might by a friend during his debut. Izuku drove Kyoka to a cozy restaurant that his uncle Naomasa had recommended. Upon entering, the owner recognized him immediately and congratulated him, seating them at a special couples table with a unique menu. The two teenagers felt a bit shy from the attention but soon settled in, looking over the menu and deciding on their meals. They enjoyed a lovely evening, chatting and laughing, and afterward, Izuku took her to a nearby park where they strolled for an hour, admiring the night sky over Mustafu. Izuku invited Kyoka to his house to cuddle for a bit before taking her home. When they arrived, they found the house empty, with a note from his father explaining that he had to spend the night in Roppongi for an important meeting the next day. They decided to cuddle on the sofa while watching a comedy. After the movie, Kyoka received a text that made her smile, and when Izuku asked if she needed to go home, she replied that she would prefer to stay with him. Izuku smiled back at her and agreed. They prepared for bed, with Kyoka borrowing one of Izuku's oversized t-shirts to sleep in. As they cuddled, they chatted and shared kisses, gradually becoming more affectionate. They looked into each other's eyes and felt ready to take their relationship to the next level. For the next few hours, they explored each other's affection, deepening their bond. The next morning, Kyoka woke up to find an empty bed. At first, she thought she had dreamed of the wonderful night spent with the person she loved, but when she noticed her own body in the bed, she smiled, realizing it was all true. She slipped on the oversized t-shirt belonging to Izuku and walked to the kitchen, where the delicious aroma of breakfast filled the air. She was greeted by a shirtless Izuku, who wore only pajama pants, standing in front of the stove with a spatula in hand. He smiled at her and said good morning, revealing that he had made breakfast. As he approached her, he wrapped his arms around her and kissed her gently, expressing his love for her. She reciprocated his feelings and thanked him for the food, reminiscing about the previous day, which had been quite memorable. They enjoyed the breakfast that Izuku had prepared and decided to spend the day on a music date. He picked up his acoustic guitar, and they strolled through downtown, playing and singing in a park. Occasionally, other street musicians joined them, and they shared a joyful jam session. Together. At the end of the day, Izuku walked his girlfriend back to her parents' house and kissed her one last time before heading home. Upon arriving, he was greeted by his father, who discussed the ongoing situation with All for One. Toshinori informed his son that they had little information about his whereabouts and mentioned that he had contacted his old sidekick, Sir Night-Eye, to collaborate on the case. Initially, Mirai was displeased to learn that One for All had been passed on to someone else, but Toshinori reassured him that it was the right decision, sharing that Nana had given her approval. Eventually, Mirai expressed a desire to meet the boy, and Izuku agreed to a meeting, considering him almost family. The next day, class resumed, and Aizawa had an announcement for his students. He informed them that they were supposed to elect a class president before the USJ incident, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they would hold the election that morning. He gave them 1 hour and then took a nap. At first, everyone wanted the position, and they suggested a class-wide election until Ida stepped up to address the class. He proposed that they should appoint Yagi as president, highlighting Izuku's leadership skills and how he had fought to protect them during the USJ incident. Ida expressed his unwavering support for Izuku, stating that he would follow him anywhere because he trusted him to keep them safe. Izuku was taken aback by Ida's words. While the position was prestigious, he felt uncertain about deserving it. Just as he was about to protest, nearly everyone in the class, except for Bakugo and Todoroki, began cheering for Ida's idea and agreed with him. Izuku eventually relented, stating that if they wanted him to represent them, he would do his best and always have their backs until they found someone better suited for the role. The class cheered for their new president, and they proceeded to elect a vice president. Tenya Ida received the most votes, securing the position with 12 votes in his favor. After the election, Izawa revealed that the lesson of the day would focus on choosing their hero names, supervised by midnight. When she entered the classroom, each student presented their chosen names. Some were initially rejected, like Aoyama's lengthy name and Bakugo's transition from King Explosion Murder to Lord Explosion Murder, ultimately settling on Nitro. Others, like Azui with Froppy, Yayorozu with Creati, and Ashido with Alien Queen, were well received. Ida struggled to choose his hero name, repeatedly writing and erasing options on his board. Noticing his difficulty, Izuku discreetly approached him to offer assistance. Ida explained that he wanted to honor his family's legacy, as he and his brother were the fifth generation of heroes. He felt he couldn't choose a name without considering his family's reputation. Izuku encouraged him to think about the kind of hero he wanted to be. Ida expressed his desire to help civilians and be a beacon of hope, just like his brother and parents had been. Izuku suggested that since Ida was the fastest hero, he could be seen as a knight in shining armor, ready to save people in no time. Inspired by this, Ida realized that the silver armor Izuku mentioned was reminiscent of his uniform and family legacy. He thanked Izuku for his help and confidently presented his hero name to the class: the Turbo Hero Knight, Quicksilver. As the students continued to share their hero names, everyone had impressive choices except for Todoroki, who simply wrote Shoto on his board. Finally, it was Izuku's turn. He stepped to the front and reflected on his journey to becoming a hero. He spoke of his promise to his family to protect the country and honor a great legacy of heroes. He declared that he would be the shield and sword for the people, willing to sacrifice for their safety. He hoped to be recognized as the protector hero, guardian. After the hero name session, Izawa announced the upcoming internship week and shared the offers from heroes who had taken notice of their performances during the sports festival. Izuku received more offers than anyone else in the class by a significant margin. Izawa instructed the students to review the internship offers until the end of class. Izuku chose not to look at any offers, knowing his grandfather would want him for his first internship. He eagerly anticipated spending that week learning under the retired hero. A few days later, as everyone prepared to leave for their internships, Izuku felt reluctant to let Kyoka go, aware that he wouldn't see her for an entire week while she was with Dead Arm. They shared a final kiss before she boarded the bus for her internship, while Izuku headed home with his father, where his grandfather awaited them. Upon arriving at their house, Sorahiko was already there with someone Izuku recognized as his father's former sidekick, Sir Night-Eye. The tall man introduced himself as Mirai Sasaki, and after a handshake, the four of them sat at the table to chat. Izuku asked about the situation with All for One, to which Sorahiko replied that, for now, he was presumed dead. Izuku had stopped his successor during the attack, so they believed All for One would need to find someone else to pass his legacy to. Sorahiko explained that All for One was on life support, surviving only through the quirks he had stolen over the years, but he was still a threat, likely waiting for the right moment to strike Toshinori and eliminate One for All. Izuku expressed concern about a powerful Nomu he had fought, suggesting that it was designed to tire his father out for a bigger confrontation. Sorahiko acknowledged Izuku's strength but insisted that he was still a child and not yet ready for such battles. Izuku argued that he had One for All and felt it was his responsibility, but Sorahiko firmly stated that he did not want to lose his grandson, having already lost others close to him. After some back and forth, Izuku agreed to refrain from facing All for One until necessary, though he expressed his desire to support his father. Sorahiko then shifted the conversation to training, emphasizing the importance of aerial combat skills. The next 3 days followed a similar routine for Izuku. He woke early for morning training, during which Sorahiko taught him aerial maneuvers for fighting and rescue operations. They patrolled the skies over the city, intervening when hero assistance was needed. In the evenings, Izuku relaxed, either chatting with Kyoka on the phone or playing music in a nearby park. On the morning of the fourth day, breaking news erupted across all the news stations. The previous night, Endeavor, the number 2 hero, and his youngest son, Shoto Todoroki, were found dead in an alley in Hosu. Alongside them, the hero killer known as Stain was discovered barely alive, suffering from severe burns covering most of his body. A statement from Endeavor's agency, delivered by his second-in-command Burnin, revealed that Endeavor had taken Shoto to Hoso for an internship experience while pursuing the hero killer. Police reports indicated that Endeavor and Shoto had confronted Stain in the alley where they were killed, severely injuring the villain in the process. Stain was currently under heavy police surveillance at the hospital, receiving treatment for his burns before being transferred to Tartarus prison pending trial. In response to the tragedy, the school recalled all students from their internships and held a press conference to mourn the loss of Endeavor and his son, a promising first-year student. Principal Nizu announced an investigation into why Endeavor had taken only one intern on such a dangerous case, suggesting that additional support from his sidekicks might have ensured their safety. The school closed for 2 weeks to allow students to grieve and to construct new dorms, as it transitioned to a mandatory boarding school system for all students and staff. This decision was accelerated by the recent events, which highlighted the need for enhanced security measures. During those 2 weeks, Kyoka nearly moved in with Izuku and Tashinori, as her parents were away on a music tour. Tashinori invited her to stay with them until the dorms were ready. During this time, Tashinori and Sorahiko continued Izuku's aerial combat training, while All Might assisted Kyoka with her close combat techniques. Aware that the two teenagers might want some privacy at night, Tashinori chose to spend a few nights at his agency. On moving day, Izuku borrowed his father's pickup truck to transport his and Kyoka's belongings to the dorm. His room contained only the essentials: clothes, a computer, and his guitars. Kyoka had a lot of belongings to move, so she spent the day organizing her things and decorating her room. Afterward, the remaining students of Class 1A decided to throw a small moving-in party filled with games and food while they chatted together, except for Bakugo, who chose to avoid spending time with the others. As the days passed, nearly a month and a half went by since the move-in, and nothing out of the ordinary occurred. However, their training seemed to intensify more than before the internship, likely due to the teachers' concerns about another potential villain attack on the school, or perhaps it was just the nature of UA. For 3 consecutive days, Kyoka felt nauseous as soon as she got out of bed, causing Izuku to worry that his girlfriend might be unwell. Initially, he attributed it to the strange food combinations she craved the night before while they watched a movie together. But after several days, he urged her to visit Recovery Girl for a checkup. Kyoka reluctantly agreed, insisting that Izuku should not accompany her. She mentioned that if it turned out to be related to personal matters, she didn't want him to overhear anything. Instead, she asked Momo to go with her, and Izuku promised to inform their teacher about her late arrival. After breakfast, Izuku headed to class while Kyoka and Momo made their way to the nurse's office. Upon entering, they were greeted by the elderly nurse. "Ah, Kyoka, dear, and your friend Momo. What brings you here this morning?" Grandma Chio asked. Kyoka explained that she had been feeling unwell in the mornings for the past few days, and Izuku insisted she get checked out just in case. Momo teased Kyoka about not mentioning her morning sickness, prompting Kyoka to shyly deflect the attention. Chio conducted several tests on Kyoka, and as she reviewed the results, her expression shifted to one of concern. Noticing this, both girls began to feel anxious. "Grandma Chio, what's wrong? I don't like the look on your face. Am I really sick?" Kyoka asked. "Sweetheart, you're not sick, but there is something significant happening. This isn't the first time I've had to share such news with a student, but this time it's particularly personal since it involves my grandson," Chio explained. Kyoka was puzzled, wondering what that could mean for Izuku. Momo, understanding the implication, started to panic internally. "Kyoka, the reason Izuku is concerned is that you two are together." "Kyoka, you are going to be a mother," Chio revealed gently. Kyoka was momentarily stunned by the revelation. The word "piain" echoed in her mind, and the reality of carrying Izuku's child hit her hard. She felt a rush of emotions, fear and disbelief swirling within her. "How can this be happening?" Kyoka exclaimed, her mind racing with thoughts of her father's reaction and the implications of being so young and unprepared for motherhood. "Kyoka, please calm down," Momo urged. "How can I calm down?" Kyoka stammered. "You are Piardananti, yes. You and Izuku are going to be parents, Momo reassured her. Chio approached Kyoka and hugged her, while Momo comforted her by gently patting her back. It's okay, my dear. Everything will be fine. You're not the first student to find themselves in this situation, and I'm here to help you both, Chio said. Will I have to drop out of the hero program? Kyoka asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. No, sweetie. You may need to pause combat training for a while, but you can stay in school. I promise you that. Momo, could you stay with her while I make a call? Chio requested. Momo nodded, assuring Kyoka that everything would be all right and that she would help her with everything related to the baby. Kai, I need to ask you something. Earlier, when you were panicking, you mentioned All Might. Why? Momo inquired. Kyoka hesitated but decided to confide in her best friend. I think I can trust you with this. It's not my secret to share, but I'm sure Izuku wouldn't mind. You see, Izuku and All Might. Is he his father? Momo guessed. How did you know? Kyoka asked, surprised. It's kind of obvious. Izuku is almost as strong as him, and All Might seems close to him, Momo explained. Yes, but please keep that to yourself, Kyoka urged. Of course, don't worry, Kentucky. So you and Izuku really? Momo asked. Yeah, Kyoka confirmed. How did it happen? Continued, curious. You want me to explain how to have a relationship with a guy? Kyoka replied, a hint of humor breaking through her anxiety. No, silly. I mean, how did it happen? Momo clarified. After he won the sports festival, we went on a dinner date. We had a romantic walk in the park, and when we returned to his house, his father was at his agency. I stayed the night and things just escalated from there, Kyoka recounted. Wow, Kyoka really? Momo exclaimed, wide-eyed. Just then, Recovery Girl returned to the room. Kyoka, I called your homeroom teacher, and Izuku is on his way. I didn't tell anyone else, but you will need to inform your parents. Izuku will speak with his father later. And about school, don't worry. We will inform Nizu, and will ensure you stay enrolled in the hero program. Everything will be fine. A few minutes later, Izuku entered the room to find Kyoka embraced by his grandmother and Momo. Panic surged through him as he realized that her condition was more serious than he initially thought. Grandma had something important to discuss with Sunny and Kyoka, so she decided to leave them alone, assuring them they could take all the time they needed. Izuku felt a sense of concern and asked if everything was all right. Grandma reassured him that it was, encouraging him to listen to Kyoka. Once Recovery Girl and Momo left the room, Kyoka returned to class to inform their teacher that Izuku and she would not be back for the day. Izuku settled next to Kyoka, wrapping an arm around her waist while she rested her head on his shoulder. He sensed that she had something significant to share, so he patiently waited for her to begin. Kyoka asked Izuku if he loved her, and he affirmed his feelings, expressing that he loved her more than anything. She pressed for reassurance, wanting to know if he truly meant it. In response, he knelt before her, taking her hands in his, and declared his love for her, recalling the moment they first met at the music store. Tears welled in her eyes as she knelt in front of him, wrapping her arms around his neck, struggling to find the words. After a moment, she revealed that she was P-Arginin-T. Izuku fell silent, processing the news that Kyoka was carrying their child. Tears began to stream down his face as he looked at her, overwhelmed by the reality of the situation. Kyoka worried that he might not want the baby, but he quickly reassured her that he was happy and excited about becoming a father. He expressed his willingness to drop out of school and find a job to support them. Kyoka silenced him with a kiss, insisting that neither of them would drop out of school. They would find a solution together, with her parents and hopefully his father's support. They both agreed that they would make it work. Their conversation was interrupted when Recovery Girl returned to perform an LTRS-ND to check on Kyoka's P-Arginin-Ui. She applied a cold gel to Kyoka's belly and used a device to take the LTRS-ND. After examining the results, she informed them that Kyoka was about 6 weeks along. Both teenagers quickly realized that this timing coincided with the upcoming sports festival. Recovery Girl playfully scolded Izuku for not using protection, reminding him that many quirks could interfere with birth control pills. Kyoka explained that her doctor had assured her it would be fine given her mutation quirk. Recovery Girl expressed her frustration but also posed an important question. Did they want to keep the baby? Kyoka immediately asserted that she did not want to terminate the PRGNCY, despite the challenges they would face in continuing school. Izuku echoed her sentiments, affirming their commitment to raising the child together. Recovery Girl expressed her happiness with their decision and encouraged them to talk to Toshinori and their parents, granting them the day off to do so. Grateful, they left the nurse's office and headed to the teacher's lounge, where they found All Might and Midnight chatting over coffee. Izuku hesitated, but Midnight reassured him that everyone knew he was Toshinori's son. They requested to speak with Toshinori privately, explaining that it was important. Midnight teased them about young love, but their faces turned red as Kyoka instinctively touched her belly. Toshinori was taken by surprise, nearly spitting out his drink when he heard the news. He was initially shocked but then expressed his overwhelming happiness at becoming a grandfather. He assured them that he would support them both and that they didn't need to worry about school. He would cover their expenses as long as they stayed in school. Toshinori also mentioned plans for a SEC education class for first-year students, emphasizing the importance of using protection in the future. Kyoka felt a bit embarrassed but agreed to be more careful. Izuku asked to borrow the truck to visit Kyoka's parents, and Toshinori readily agreed, reassuring them that he would handle everything. He encouraged them to focus on their future and the baby, emphasizing that he had more than enough resources to support them. With gratitude, Kyoka thanked Toshinori, who insisted she call him Toshi, welcoming her into the family. The two teenagers left the school grounds, and Izuku drove them to Shizuoka Prefecture to meet Kyoka's parents. Izuku usually felt excited to visit Mika and Kyotoku, but this time he feared their reaction. It wasn't every day that a teenager had to announce to his girlfriend's parents that he had gotten her PRGNT due to a careless mistake. The musician couple was initially not angry but rather annoyed. They soon realized it was a common mistake that many teenagers could make. What surprised them most was Izuku's reaction when they told him they were not upset and would help the young couple as best they could. Izuku knelt in front of Kyoka's parents, his forehead touching the ground, and spoke earnestly. He expressed that he felt he had brought dishonor upon their family by getting their daughter PRGNT without being engaged. He wished to remedy the situation by asking for their permission to marry Kyoka and raise a family with her. Kyotoku responded, reassuring him that he had not brought dishonor upon their family. They understood that the situation was something that could happen, and they were not angry. However, they suggested that he ask the concerned person about his proposal. Izuku stood up and looked at the girl he loved, smiling as he realized his father had just given him his blessing. Just before he could ask the big question, Kyoka interrupted him, expressing her desire to marry him and playfully urging him to skip the question and kiss her. The two teenagers spent a few hours with Kyoka's parents before returning to UA. After their last class, they knew they had to inform Aizawa about Kyoka's condition, so they decided to rip off the band-aid and tell him that day. They found him alone in his classroom, napping, and decided to wake him up. Aizawa stirred and warned them that they better have a good reason for skipping an entire day of class. Izuku hesitated, unsure of how to start, while Kyoka fumbled for words. Aizawa urged them to just tell him what was going on, and Izuku finally blurted out that Kyoka was PRGNT. Aizawa sat up, quickly exiting his sleeping bag. He rummaged through his desk drawer, pulling out 2 glasses and a bottle of sake. He poured himself a glass and downed it in one go before filling it again and handing the second glass to Izuku. Izuku hesitated, reminding Aizawa that he was only 16. Aizawa shrugged, saying that if Izuku was old enough to be in this situation, he was old enough for a drink. He expressed that he wasn't angry, just disappointed. He informed Kyoka that she was forbidden from combat training but could continue with physical training, expecting her to take it easy and have regular checkups with Recovery Girl. He reassured them that he would never jeopardize the life of their child. Kyoka thanked him, apologizing for the trouble they had caused. Aizawa told them to take care of themselves and suggested they eventually tell their classmates, advising that the sooner, the better. He confirmed that he would not expel them for making a mistake, acknowledging that everyone is human. He encouraged them to work on their combat training when they returned after the baby was born, stating that they would stand beside him and watch their classmates in the meantime. As they left the classroom, Aizawa picked up his phone to call Nomuri, sharing the surprising news he had just learned. Meanwhile, Izuku and Kyoka entered the dorm, holding hands. They walked into the common room where everyone was enjoying themselves after a long day at school. When Mina saw the couple, she rushed over, excited to see them. Kyoka greeted her, asking what she had missed that day. Mina filled her in on the usual lessons and then inquired why Kyoka and Izuku had skipped class. Kyoka revealed she had to visit her doctor and parents, leading Mina to ask if she was sick. Kyoka playfully responded that it was the kind of sickness that would end after 9 months. Ashido's eyes widened as she looked between her friend and Izuku, realizing what Kyoka meant. The other girls quickly gathered around Kyoka, excitedly asking questions, while Kaminari, Shiro, and Kirishima congratulated Izuku. Mineta, however, complained loudly about the injustice of not having had a chance with a girl before him. Ida approached them, expressing his disapproval with his usual fervor, stating that their actions were not appropriate for students of UA and that their relationship was against school rules. Kyoka and Izuku were taken aback, and Izuku firmly told Ida to be quiet. He asserted that if he wanted to be with Kyoka, he would do so freely, regardless of Ida's opinions. Momo intervened, pulling Ida aside and advising him to leave Kyoka and Izuku alone if he didn't want to face the wrath of the strongest student at UA. The rest of the evening was filled with congratulations from their classmates, except for Bakugo, who remained silent. They all promised to support the young couple with the upcoming challenges of parenthood. Weeks passed, and the UA students continued their lives as normally as possible, with a few adjustments. Izuku and Kyoka officially moved into the same dorm, as Cementos modified the structure to provide them with a larger room situated in the middle of the building. During the final exams, the students faced off against a teacher in pairs, but Kyoka was excused from participation due to her PRDSY. Most of the class passed the battle exam, except for a few, including Bakugo, who refused to work with Izuku against All Might, insisting he could achieve his goals alone. All Might easily knocked down his opponent at the beginning of the exam, but Izuku managed to impressively defeat his father in a fierce battle. Despite his victory, the teachers decided that Bakugo failed the exam since it was a teamwork assessment and he refused to cooperate, ignoring everything Izuku had told him. As summer vacation approached, the school made a last-minute change to their schedule. Instead of sending both classes to the Wild Pussycats Forest Lodge as planned, Class 1B was sent to the USJ for a week of camping and quirk training, while Class 1A was sent to Might Tower, where the No. 1 agency had training facilities specifically designed to withstand All Might's power. The first 2 days went smoothly. All Might and Eraserhead pushed the students to their limits to help them enhance their quirks. Kyoka participated in the exercises but took frequent breaks to avoid exhaustion, primarily using her quirk on a concrete wall to strengthen her abilities. However, the third day took a drastic turn. The day began well, with students engaged in their routine training, when suddenly alarms blared throughout the facility. All Might rushed to a nearby computer and saw various strange individuals attacking the tower and breaking in. These intruders resembled the Nomu creatures his son had defeated at the USJ earlier in the year, as they all had exposed brains. Students, stay inside and defend yourselves. They appear to be the same type of Nomu that attacked you at the USJ. I will go confront them, he commanded, not waiting for a response before rushing to the entrance of the tower to battle the enemies. He fought valiantly, but even he could be overwhelmed by so many foes. After punching one, 2 more jumped on him, and he began to tire. Izuku watched the screen, sweating profusely as he saw his father in a precarious situation. He glanced at his classmates, noticing their worried expressions as they witnessed All Might struggling. He approached Kyoka and pulled her aside from the others. I need to go help Dad, he said urgently. I know, Izuku. Please come back to me, she replied, concern etched on her face. I'll be okay. I love you, he reassured her, looking deeply into her eyes. I love you too, Izuku. Go save your dad, she urged. He dashed toward the exit but was halted by Aizawa's capture scarf. Where do you think you're going, problem child? Aizawa questioned. I'm going to help him, Izuku insisted. No, you won't. He's a pro, the number one. He knows what he's doing, Aizawa replied firmly. I can't just stand by. You know his condition, he's already exhausted. I won't let my father face this alone. Izuku pleaded. Aizawa looked at his student and then at the others in the room. He could see their fear and understood that the symbol of peace was in serious trouble. Realizing that his son might be the only one who could help, he relented. Go, but be careful, Aizawa finally said. Thanks, sensei. And if anything happens, please protect Kyoka, Izuku added. Of course. Now go and save the day, hero. Aizawa urged. Computer, authorization Yagi Izuku, aka Guardian, code OFA09. In 10 seconds, put this room in lockdown and activate every security countermeasure. Threat level red. The only individuals who can remove this order are me, All Might, or Pro Hero Eraserhead. A feminine voice echoed through the room. Authorization code is granted, Guardian. Izuku took one last look at Kyoka before exiting and sprinting as fast as he could to join his father and stop the attack. Inside the room, everyone was confused, wondering if Yagi had just revealed that he was All Might's son and commanded the tower's security system like an important figure. They exchanged glances, and questions began to arise. Shut up! Kyoka suddenly yelled, tears in her eyes. Why? Someone asked. Just be quiet. Don't you see they are risking their lives out there? She implored. But we deserve to know. Is Yagi really All Might's son? Another student questioned. Kyoka looked around at her classmates, understanding their fear and curiosity. She met Momo's gaze, and the raven-haired girl nodded, encouraging her to reveal Izuku's secret. Look, everyone, I think you deserve to know. Yes, Izuku is All Might's son, and right now he's risking his life to protect his father and us. So please have faith in them. I know they will keep us safe. The class fell silent at the revelation of what was likely the biggest secret they could imagine, turning their attention back to the screen to monitor the situation outside. When Izuku reached the battle zone, he was relieved to see his father still standing. He rushed forward and punched a Nomu that was about to attack All Might from behind with a chainsaw for a hand. Izuku? We need to push them out of the tower. There seem to be about 20 of them, All Might said. Okay, Dad. Izuku replied. They fought together for about 15 to 20 minutes, managing to either incapacitate or drive away their opponents. Exhausted from the fierce battle, both heroes collapsed onto the ground to catch their breath. When they looked at each other, they recognized their battered but victorious state and shared a fist bump, laughing like two kids. We did it, Dad. That was a tough one, Izuku exclaimed. Yeah, thanks, son. You really saved me today, All Might replied gratefully. Computer, authorization Yagi Tashinori, aka All Might code OFA08. Threat dismissed. Unlock the building and call the police force and cleanup crew. Authorization code is granted, All Might, the computer confirmed. Izuku sat on the ground, surveying the damage to the building. He was relieved that no one had died that day, but he couldn't shake the question of why Might Tower had been targeted. These creatures were undoubtedly Nomu, indicating that All for One was behind this attack. A few minutes later, Class A and Aizawa rushed to the scene, and Kyoka leaped into her boyfriend's arms, kissing him as if he had just returned from a long battle. She expressed her worry for him, reminding him to not stress for the sake of their baby. He playfully dismissed her concern, calling her broccoli head. As they celebrated, another explosion echoed from outside the building. Izuku sprinted toward the exit alongside Eraserhead and All Might, where they encountered a man in a sleek black suit and helmet, patiently waiting outside the damaged structure. Izuku asked if the man was All for One, to which All Might confirmed and instructed his son to step back, insisting he would handle the situation alone. Izuku protested, but All Might reiterated that his priority was to protect his classmates and everyone in the tower. He revealed that this fight was personal, as All for One had killed Nana in front of him. Izuku reluctantly agreed, stating he would jump in if things got too dangerous. All Might focused solely on his nemesis, aware that his strength was waning after the previous battles. He charged at the villain, and they exchanged powerful punches. All Might was in rough shape, exhausted from fighting the Nomus, while All for One appeared fresh and ready for battle. All Might managed to destroy the villain's helmet, revealing the lack of a face beneath it, understanding that the helmet had been a life support system. Both fighters prepared for their final attacks, knowing this would be their last chance. Toshinori felt the flame of One for All flickering within him but summoned the strength for one last punch. All for One, struggling to breathe without his helmet, gathered multiple quirks in his right arm and charged at All Might. As they collided, Toshinori knew he couldn't dodge the fatal blow aimed at his chest. He used his right fist to deflect the attack, feeling the impact tear through him. Despite the pain, he called out the name of his ultimate attack, channeling every last bit of One for All into his left fist. With a final surge of determination, he aimed directly at All for One's head, delivering a punch so powerful that it created a cyclone of wind around them. When the dust settled, All Might stood with his left arm raised, a painful yet genuine smile on his face. He glanced around, seeing his students and his son, who was embracing his fiancée, smiling back at him. But the toll of the battle was too much, and he collapsed to the ground. Izuku rushed to his father, lifting his head and urging him to stay awake, assuring him that help was on the way. All Might reassured his son, expressing pride in him and stating that it was over. Izuku confirmed that they had won, and All Might entrusted the safety of the country to him. Momo, Kirishima, and Kyoka hurried to their side, with Momo quickly wrapping All Might's injured arm to stop the bleeding while Kyoka checked his heartbeat. Izuku lifted his father and began to walk toward Might Tower but suddenly stopped when he heard something. To see All for One attempting to rise from the ground, his face severely damaged but still clinging to life with his regeneration quirk. With a sinister laugh, All for One declared that even if he was defeated, he would not go down alone. He raised his hand, and black goo began to seep from it, revealing a device that fell to the ground beside him. Momo recognized it immediately and turned pale, warning everyone that it was a nuclear bomb. All for One, exhausted from using his teleportation quirk, fell beside the bomb, satisfied that he would win in the end. Izuku felt a surge of panic, knowing that throwing the bomb away would only lead to devastation from the explosion or radiation. He looked at his father in his arms, at his girlfriend beside him with a fearful expression on her beautiful face, and at his friend, who appeared defeated, realizing their imminent fate. He walked to Kirishima and placed his father in his arms before taking one of his hairs and forcing it into the red-haired teenager's mouth. Eijiro Kirishima was taken aback, questioning what was happening. Izuku Midoriya explained that he was granting Kirishima the power of One for All, making him the 10th holder of that incredible strength. He urged Kirishima to swallow the hair quickly, as time was running out. Kirishima, trusting his best friend, complied, swallowing the hair with a strange expression. Izuku instructed Kirishima to tell his father about the quirk once he was okay. Kirishima, understanding the gravity of the situation, recognized that this was the bravest thing to do to save everyone. He assured Izuku that he would take care of things. Izuku then approached Kyoka, placing his hand on her belly before kissing her for what he knew would be the last time. He expressed his sorrow for the choices he had to make, asking her to live a long and happy life and to tell their child that he loved them with all his heart. Kyoka understood, knowing that Izuku, the man she loved, would do what he always did: protect everyone. With a heavy heart, Izuku smiled one last time at her before grabbing the nuclear bomb with one hand and the unconscious All for One with the other. He soared into the sky at maximum speed, flying faster than he ever had before, determined to take the bomb to a place where it wouldn't harm anyone. As he ascended, he struggled to breathe due to the lack of oxygen at such heights, but he pressed on, knowing he wouldn't survive this. He glanced at the villain in his grasp, a smirk forming on his face as he realized he would end All for One's reign of terror with his sacrifice. The timer on the bomb ticked down, and he pushed his quirk to its limits, feeling weightless as he looked down at the beautiful planet beneath him. He knew he had made the right choice. The essence of being a hero was to be ready to sacrifice oneself for the greater good. With a final smile directed toward the ground, he faced his imminent fate. Back on the ground, everyone was still shaken by the recent events. All Might had just defeated a formidable foe but had collapsed in a skeletal form. The villain had teleported next to them with a nuclear bomb, threatening millions of lives. They watched as Yagi, their friend, took the bomb and the villain into the sky, and moments later, they saw the explosion. No one answered the unspoken question about Yagi's safety. They all understood that even he might not be fast enough to escape such a powerful explosion. Momo looked at Kyoka, knowing the pain she felt. Everyone was aware of how deeply the two loved each other, and they knew Yagi had not sacrificed himself in vain. Momo approached the PR Jinin tea girl and hugged her tightly, allowing her to cry in her best friend's arms. Minutes later, police and medical personnel arrived at the scene, taking charge of the students and villains. They placed All Might in an ambulance and rushed him to the nearest hospital while the police secured the remaining Nomu. A few days later, Toshinori opened his eyes to the white ceiling of a hospital room. Turning his head, he saw the purple hair of his son's girlfriend resting on his arm. He smiled at her, grateful for her presence during his recovery. Noticing that Izuku was not in the room, he moved his arms slightly to alert her that he was awake. Kyoka had been dreaming of a happy future with Izuku when she woke to find Toshinori looking at her. She immediately embraced him, tears streaming down her face. He comforted her, thanking her for watching over him while he was unconscious. Kyoka, still crying, shared the difficult news that Izuku was gone. Toshinori was taken aback, struggling to comprehend her words. She explained that after defeating All for One, the villain had teleported a nuclear bomb to Izuku, who had bravely taken it into space to save everyone. As she expressed her sorrow, Toshinori held her close, both of them grieving the loss of his son, who had sacrificed himself for the greater good. Toshinori reassured Kyoka that Izuku had acted out of love for them all, promising that they would always remember him. 2 days later, he was discharged from the hospital and returned to UA, where he was welcomed by students and teachers. He felt pride in his son's sacrifice, knowing it meant they were all alive. As he walked toward the cheering crowd, he stopped in front of Class 1A, hugging each student and allowing them to share their grief over the loss of their classmate. The last student to leave the class was the red-haired boy, Kirishima, who leaned in to whisper something in his ear. He expressed the need to speak with All Might privately later, emphasizing its importance. Toshinori nodded at the teen and continued toward Nizu, who embraced his friend as he paused beside him, both still mourning the loss of the boy. Toshinori addressed everyone present, including the news crews gathered to witness the return of the symbol of peace. He spoke solemnly about the day's sadness, revealing that not everyone knew they were alive due to a man's sacrifice. His son, Izuku Yagi, had bravely given his life for their sake. The villain he fought in Tokyo had managed to acquire a nuclear weapon and brought it to the heart of the city, threatening billions of lives. Izuku had heroically transported the bomb into space, resulting in his death. Toshinori grieved not only for the loss of his son but also for the loss of a hero. Although Izuku had not yet received his license, Toshinori believed he was already a full-fledged hero in his heart. He urged everyone to remember his son's name, Izuku. Yagi, the protector hero guardian. The crowd began to cheer for Izuku's hero name, tears in their eyes. Toshinori looked at them, feeling a sense of happiness knowing that his son's memory would not be forgotten. He then announced his retirement as the #1 hero, All Might, stating that he no longer possessed the power to be a pro-hero and the symbol of peace. He intended to use his remaining time on Earth to pass on his knowledge and experience to the next generation of heroes, helping them become the new protectors of their country as a full-time teacher at UA. With tears in his eyes, he left the stage to the applause of the crowd, knowing that the people would remember his son's name, which was all that mattered to him. Later that day, Toshinori sat in the teacher's lounge, gazing at a picture of himself and Izuku when the door opened. Eijiro Kirishima, the manly teenager from Class 1A, entered and sat down in front of the former hero. Kirishima conveyed that he needed to speak about something important. He revealed that before Izuku had left them, he had given Kirishima his quirk. Izuku had placed one of his hairs in Kirishima's mouth, declaring him the new holder of his quirk and the new protector of Japan. Kirishima mentioned that he was instructed to seek Toshinori for further explanation. Toshinori was taken aback, realizing that his son had been clever enough to pass on his quirk before sacrificing himself. He hadn't considered that possibility, as One for All had been the last of his concerns at that moment. Now, knowing that the quirk was still alive, he understood he had to train the young man his son had chosen as the new holder. He began to explain the truth about their quirk, revealing that its real name was One for All. 15 years later, a young girl with short, straight green hair streaked with purple knelt in front of a tombstone. She had a well-defined musculature for a 15-year-old, and her quirk was evident with earphone jacks hanging from her earlobes. She greeted her father, expressing that it had been a while since she last spoke to him. She shared that she had applied to UA's heroic department and was determined to work hard for the entrance exam in 6 months. Kirishima had told her he wanted to pass on One for All to her, believing it was time for her to have it, and Grandpa Toshi agreed. She wondered if she was worthy of it, recalling her mother's reassurance that she was just like her father. She continued, sharing that Auntie Momo and Uncle Kirishima had a baby named Izuku, and she was the godmother, promising to take care of him. She expressed her wish to have known her father, conveying her love for him. After leaving the tombstone, she walked over to her godfather and godmother, Ijiro and Momo, who were present with Kyoka and her daughter to honor their friend who had given his life for them. They exchanged glances with little Izuku, who was sleeping in his mother's arms. Ijiro hugged his goddaughter after she spoke to her father, while Kyoka knelt in front of the tombstone to talk to Izuku. She shared that Kirishima would be giving Izumi One for All and assured Izuku that they would ensure she received the training to master it. Kyoka also confided that she had met someone named Tamaki Amajiki, a hero from UA. Initially hesitant to pursue a relationship, she recalled Izumi's words that Izuku would want her to move on and not be alone forever. She expressed her feelings for Tamaki, affirming that while she loved him, Izuku would always be her first love. She missed him every day and hoped Izumi would grow up well, joking about the challenges of teenage life. She promised to return and expressed her love for Izuku, looking forward to their reunion in the future. Izumi crossed the UA gates, feeling ready. Her uncle Ijiro had given her One for All 6 months ago, and she had undergone intense training with the support of her mother, Uncle Kirishima, Auntie Momo, Grandpa Toshi, and even Tamaki. The day she swallowed Red Riot's hair, she experienced a brief coma during which she met her father. Izuku welcomed her to the world of quirks, and they shared a long conversation. She felt immense joy at finally speaking with him, cherishing the moment as she had always loved him. He expressed his regret for having to leave her and Kyoka behind, but he believed their lives were more valuable than his own. He found happiness in sacrificing himself, proud of the beautiful woman she had become. He concluded their chat by telling her how proud he was and how much he loved her, feeling content knowing Kyoka was happy with Tamaki after all those years. After her conversation with her father, another figure from her legacy appeared to her. Nana Shimura, just as she had done with her father 15 years ago, bestowed upon her the quirk, Float. She told Izumi that with One for All, along with her dual earphone jack and regeneration quirk, she would become the most powerful heroine in the world. Izumi smiled at her great-grandmother before waking up and beginning her training. As she crossed the gates of UA, the first thing she noticed was the giant 15-meter gold statue of All Might and Guardian, each holding the earth above their heads with one hand. She smiled at the statue, feeling happy that people still remembered the sacrifices her family had made for the country over the years. Today was the day of the entrance exam, and she was ready to show the world who the future #1 hero would be, the heroine of Hope, Sentinel, because she was here, just like her father and grandfather before her. Izuku Midoriya stood at the edge of the training grounds, his heart racing with anticipation. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the landscape, and the air was filled with the sounds of his classmates training nearby. He could feel the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him, but he was determined to push through. As he prepared for his next training session, he recalled the challenges he had faced in the past. Each battle had shaped him, teaching him valuable lessons about strength, friendship, and perseverance. He knew that he had to keep improving, not just for himself but for those he cared about. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the area, pulling his attention. He turned to see one of his classmates, Katsuki Bakugo, launching an explosive attack at a training dummy. The force of the blast sent debris flying, and Izuku couldn't help but admire Bakugo's fierce determination. They had come a long way together, and despite their differences, they shared a bond forged in the heat of competition. Izuku took a deep breath and focused on his own training. He envisioned the moves he needed to perfect, each one a step closer to becoming the hero he aspired to be. With every punch and kick, he felt his resolve strengthen. He was not alone in this journey, his friends were with him, each striving to reach their own goals. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Izuku felt a renewed sense of purpose. He would face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and determination, knowing that he had the support of his classmates and the lessons of the past to guide him. The path of a hero was never easy, but he was ready to embrace it fully.